moderators one by one as we go into the program. But before starting, I want to say that we are very thankful to the Department of Telecommunication, Government of India, for co-hosting this program with us, the Innovation and Entrepreneurship for SDGs. I would now like to invite Ms. Atsuko Okuda, who's the Regional Director for Asia Pacific at the Regional Office of ITU in Bangkok, for her opening remarks. Thank you.
Distinguished speakers, fellow partners, and colleagues and participants, good afternoon to everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome you today to this side event entitled Innovation and Entrepreneurship for Sustainable Development Goals as part of the India Mobile Congress 2023. My name is Atsuko Okuda. I am the Regional Director of the ITU Regional Office for Asia and Pacific. Let me start by expressing my sincere appreciation to the Department of Telecommunications and the India Mobile Congress organizing team for making today's event possible. May I also express my appreciation for all the participants, both physical and virtual, joining us today. Against a backdrop of fast-moving technology adoption, especially as witnessed during the pandemic, the acceleration of digitalization has brought 1.1 billion people online. The total number of global mobile users in 2022 exceeded the world population. We are witnessing the meteoric rise of generative AI and the likely significant impact across not only in the ICT, but also other sectors and society at large. But at the same time, 2.6 billion people, or 33% of the global population, are estimated to be unconnected, according to ITU's latest estimate. These figures reflect the stark reality of where we are at when it comes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and leave no one behind in Asia and the Pacific. It is unlikely that our region achieves all 17 SDGs by 2030. In this era of fast evolving technology, the role of information and communication technology in achieving the SDGs cannot be overstated. We have witnessed the power of digital innovation, especially during the challenging times. However, it is imperative that we build on these digital gains and continue to harness the potential of emerging technologies such as AI, IoT, 5G, now 6G, and quantum computing, and accelerate our efforts to realize inclusive and sustainable digital transformation. The theme of this event, Readiness for Our Digital Future, provides us with a very unique opportunity to reflect on what digital technology can do to achieve all the 17 SDGs and realize economic prosperity, inclusive society, and resilience, while taking into account the environmental concerns all at the same time. This is where digital innovation is most needed, connecting digital technologies and aspirations of people and society towards achieving SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, our goal over the next 2 days is not only discuss and take stock of our progress in meeting the SDGs through ICT, but also to equip ourselves with practical digital innovation tools and frameworks. These tools will guide us in understanding the why, what, and how of building digital innovation capacity that ensures that our communities are prepared for resilient, sustainable, and inclusive digital futures. We will delve into the critical topics of open innovation ecosystems, the role of policy in achieving the SDGs, and fostering small and medium-sized businesses in the new digital era. Additionally, we will explore the significance of foresight and strategic thinking to shape our digital ecosystems for accelerating the SDG attainment. I encourage all participants, policymakers, entrepreneurs, academics, and financiers to actively engage in the discussions, workshops, and networking activities that are ahead of us. The collective expertise present here, combined with their diverse experience, will enable us to chart a path towards meeting the SDGs. Together, we can navigate the emerging digital landscape and shape a brighter, more inclusive, and sustainable future for all. Thank you once again to our host, partners, and all of you for your dedication to this vital cause. I wish you all productive and inspiring 2 days of exploration and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Atsuko-san, for those remarks. I would now like to invite Mr. Mohammed Ba, who's the Senior Coordinator for Digital Innovation Ecosystem at ITU in Geneva, to start the panel. The panel is titled Developing Open Innovation Ecosystems and the Role of Policy to Achieve the SDGs. Over to you.
It's always interesting to change the microphone because you're a bit taller, even though I'm not sure I'm taller than Akansha. But anyway, good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to be here. And before I start, I would like to, first of all, perhaps poll our panel, and then we can start the discussions. But I'm really honored to be here because this is a truly exciting panel for all of us. Why this is exciting? Because we know developing open innovation ecosystem and is really important for sustainability. And when we want to talk about sustainable development, this is something we really have been missing the boat on. Our panel will help expand this or unpack this. But first I would like to thank, of course, India Mobile Congress, and also the Department of Telecommunication for bringing us together because this is very important. In our global landscape, we know that everything is changing. And the intersection of policy, innovation, and entrepreneurship is actually the key to unlocking our futures, that equitable future for all. Without further ado, let me call our panelists on the stage. Starting first with Ms. Janet White, Head of Public Policy for APAC GSMA. Ms. White, would you please join us on the podium? Dr. Lovnesh Shanana, Senior Vice President and Regional Head for Government Affairs, SAP, Asia Pacific and Japan. Mr. Sanjeev Sharma, DDG and Senior Advisor of ITU, Department of Telecommunications. Dr. Tavpritesh Sethi, founding head at Center of Excellence in Healthcare, IIT Delhi. And last but not least, Mr. Sahil Kapoor, Technology and Innovation Specialist at UNFPA, which is the UN Population Fund. Okay, excellent. And I will join you on the podium there so that we can have a fun conversation. All right. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Excellent. So again, thank you very much for accepting to be on this panel and for really an important topic. We know that for those who remember, in 2015, everybody was panicking. Actually, a few years before 2015, everybody was panicking that we did not meet the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. And why these goals are important? Because the world has to agree to some kind of futures that everybody can work towards. That's what the MDGs are, that's what the SDGs are. And at the time, there were a lot of goals that were not met, and there's still a lot of goals that are not met 15 years later. So this is a problem. In the preamble of the SDGs, actually, they talk about three things. They talk about people, prosperity, and planet. And I think we can all feel that. I'm in Delhi, people are talking about pollutions. I go somewhere else, people may be talking about emergency telecommunication issues because all of the things happening. Of course, prosperity is all about the economy and everybody having that equitable life that they want. And people, which is really, all the things that's related to health, education, and all the socioeconomic impact. Now, I think Asuko-san just raised earlier that we still have 2.6 billion people not connected. We had a big boost during the pandemic, but we're actually going back to a lot of those bad habits. We're still, I will question and submit to you that even for those people who are connected, are they getting any meaningfulness out of this connectivity, right? Everything is digital today, so what do we do? So for us at the ITU, we see that closing the last 2.6 billion, ensuring that the ones that are connected get their full benefits, really has to do with what we call the digital innovation divide. Because that divide, that's really causing all of these other things. So it's really about the systems issue. Without further ado, we'll unpack this for the audience, and thank you for joining us. But before that, I would like just to give just 30 seconds for every one of our speakers to tell us who they are, what they do, and before we go to our round of questions. Starting with you, Saeed.
Thank you, Bob. Hi, I'm Sahil, and I lead the innovation and technology practice at United Nations Population Fund. United Nations Population Fund works towards three transformative goals. First is the zero preventable maternal deaths. The second is zero gender-based violence. And the third towards focusing is on the unmet need for family planning. Now, we basically, we work with the mission where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every youth potential is fulfilled. So I represent the agency, which is one of the United Nations agency, focusing on this agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Sahil. My name is Tavpritesh Sethi. I'm an associate professor at IIIT Delhi, so I'm representing the academia. So our institution works at the interface of computer science and the problems that our societies face, starting from healthcare, other areas like communications, biology, and so on, right? So electronics and so on. So my work focuses on healthcare specifically, and we work on digital tools that can provide healthcare services to the majority of the population of India. My background is in medicine, did a PhD in computational biology, have been working in data science for healthcare for the last 15 years with deployments at hospitals like AIMS. So our focus at the Institute is to use IT and technology to bring these services closer to the people who need it the most. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sanjeev Sharma. I'm Deputy Director General in Department of Telecommunications. and I'm also working as Senior Advisor ITU to assess the Area Office and Innovation Center in Delhi. Since I represent the government, so I am more towards the side of making the policies. I have experience of working in telecommunications as well as in education. So I have been dealing with innovations in field of telecommunications, but when I was doing my stint in Ministry of Education, there I actually formulated a policy on Design Innovation Center, executed that policy, and as a result of this, many number of design innovation centers were established. So that was purely regarding the innovation. And so as I told you that I have been involved in making the policies for the innovations. I also look after the implementation of those policies. So my deliberations over here would be more what government does and what government should do and what government can do in future. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Am I audible? Oh, it's working. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeanette White, and I'm the head of public policy for the GSMA, actually in Asia Pacific only, not the whole of GSMA. And for those who do not know what the GSMA is, we are an organization that represents the interests of the mobile industry and the wider ecosystem. So we're the global organization, and our vision is to unlock the power of connectivity so that people and businesses and society can thrive. So in my deliberations, I'm going to go a little bit more on the policy side and a little bit about how the industry has been an enabler for driving the SDGs.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, ITU, and thank you, India Mobile Congress, for this opportunity. My name is Lavnish, and I represent the industry on the panel. I lead the government affairs for Asia Pacific and Japan for SAP. India is one country that I handle, and me and my team, we engage on the policy engagements plus the thought leadership and strategic areas like the one that we are discussing. For those of you who may want to know, SAP is the world's largest enterprise software company. India, 15,000 organizations actually run on SAP. So given the data that we have, we are trying to link the digital with sustainability piece in terms of creating the transparency and also working on creating an ecosystem of innovation and also on scaling, which I'll talk during the panel discussion we have. Really, indeed, very happy to be on this panel.
Thank you very much, and I think this is a good start. Now, I think I was telling the panel we will improvise a little bit. We can go from the beginning, the middle, or the end. This is so that they're not too comfortable. But I have to say that we have everybody on this panel except the entrepreneurs. We're all entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs ourselves, but we will do our best to meet your expectation because we will create empathy for you. And if you don't, please, in the Q&A, please, you can nail them, okay? I give you the permission. With that, I would like to start by unpacking this topic. Now, I will start from Dr. Lavnish. Please, can you explain to our audience what an open innovation ecosystem is? What is the role? What role do you see in digital technology in facilitating this open innovation, and a bit why?
Okay, thank you once again for the question. This is largely a context-setting question for the discussion to follow. I think before we go into this word called open innovation ecosystem, we need to understand the changing landscape of innovation. And what's changing probably is the whole environment and the larger conditions in which all of us are now operating as stakeholders. Primarily, and I can talk on one element of influence in the ecosystem, that's the digital piece. Now, we are actually maturing into a digital society. And I would rather go to the extent of saying we are now moving away from digital and we are becoming digitally intelligent. And that's where, with machines coming in and coming with unprecedented learning that we never thought will exist, and as a result, the next wave that we all of us will be actually working on will be machines as co-workers. Now, and that has led to a shift in focus for everybody, a shift in focus from processes to data, a shift in focus from the so-called skilling, capacity building and preparing the people to a culture of innovation. That's the shift. And given this and the expanding market base plus this communications barrier falling, the nature of stakeholder interaction actually has undergone a change. And that's where the expansion of the thought process of collaboration outside one set of stakeholder has actually been facilitated, and that's where the open innovation comes in as a concept and as a practice. Now, to survive and to manage in today's context, I think all of us as stakeholder groups will now need to develop capabilities to, one, share ideas with others, second, create capabilities of managing a partner ecosystem who can actually contribute and derive value on a co-sharing basis. That is what would be the basis, and that is what we call open innovation ecosystem per se. So open innovation ecosystem, if I have to actually give a definition, it's nothing but a value creating ecosystem wherein each set of stakeholder is actually contributing and deriving value out of it. That's the whole spirit. And when I talk of principle, I mean, over a period of time, we have actually moved from the so-called close innovation to strategic alliances, and now we are talking to innovation. The principles differentiating open innovation: one, I need to believe that I am not the one who actually has the smartest people on the planet working for me. There are people outside who are far more smarter, and hence I need to collaborate. That's one. The second shift in the assumption when we talk about open innovation is the earlier mindset of I need to be the originator of the idea. I need to be the originator of the thought process for me to take a captive advantage and be the so-called competitive differentiator. The shift is you don't need to be the originator. You can actually rely and you can actually capitalize, you can actually on the innovation, the ideas of others. That's an external innovation, external research, external value add can be a big source of value add for your own work also. So and earlier my thought process was when I innovate, I should use my IP for my gains. Now, the shift that when we are talking about open innovation is I use my IP for my gains, but I also use others' IP if it serves my business or social purpose. That's the shift. Now, that's the overall context. To actually clarify further with an example, let me take SAP, our own example. We run this open innovation program called SAP Startup Studio. What we do, there is this platform, wherein the sides of this platforms are Indian organizations as our customers, startups who are actually coming in, and SAP as the technology provider. The customers or the Indian companies, organizations, the other, NGOs, they come out with problems. The startups then work on, and the budding startups, they then work on the solution on the technology provided by SAP. Now, this is where it adds value to the organization, adds value to the startup ecosystem and growth, adds value to me as a technology provider in terms of now. And we thought when we initially started, today we have worked on as many as 50 such problem statements and solutions and use cases that is getting solved, and many of them have become the products that we are selling. Now, the important part that I wanted to close with this is the need for platformization in this open innovation system, probably that we will be discussing as we move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Lavnish. I think this is quite interesting, the points you mentioned about our world is changing very fast. Everything was closed, in fact, but now if you want to generate more value, as you put it, you have to collaborate, you have to create that culture of collaboration. And yes, no one is the smartest person in the room. Actually, the smartest person in the room is probably not the one that gets rewarded, right? It's the person in the room who figures out what to do for other people. I'll hold that toss and I'll come back to you. But before that, I think GSMA actually represent a big group. You're an ecosystem by itself, right? Now, I'm not going to say GSMA is the smartest people in the room, but can you tell us what you expect and do for this ecosystem to actually ensure we create value like Dr. Lavnish is talking about?
Well, let me start off, first of all, the GSMA was the mobile industry, should I say, was the first industry to actually sign up to the SDGs. Back in 2015, our total score then, when we looked at it for the mobile industry, was 33%, not very good. Let's fast forward to today, 10 years forward. It's still not great, actually. 53, we've got improved 20 points. But where we have been and made significant progress is in SDG 9, which is the industry innovation and infrastructure. And if you think about it, the network is the foundation of any of the innovation that's most likely to go on. Without a connectivity, what can you do? And particularly in this part of the world, most of it is actually mobile. You know, it's mobile first or mobile only. And if we look about where is coverage of mobile today, it's 95% we have coverage. That still means 400 million people are not covered by, having a network. But what's worse is there are people who are covered by network. This is the mobile network. And 41% globally, but worse in Asia, 47% of them are not actually using the internet. So if we think we want to do something about, getting innovation, we need to make sure we get people on the internet. And so there are some policy things that we need to do on that. Now, I'm going to go around a little bit around the houses, and I'm going to talk about this. But so I think, we can't just say connectivity is going to get those people on there. We need to do other things like skills training. Why do people not come on the internet? Affordability of handsets, for example. Those are big issues. Their security, they're nervous about it. Gender gap. And that's one of the SDGs. So, there are lots of issues why people are not actually going on that. And we need to work together. No one can do it on their own, not the mobile industry, not the equipment vendors, not government. We have to work together. And we're all doing a bit on that. We're all doing some good things. Now, we do have some innovation programs in GSMA. I wouldn't call them, I was discussing this with my colleague, is it truly an open innovation system? These are grant-funded programs. So we have donor programs. For example, we have one which I just highlighted a little bit. It's called the GSMA Mobile Innovation Hub. And this is funded by 3 donors, Mobile Innovation Fund program, and it's UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, I think a lot of people will know that, the Swedish International Development Corporation Agency, and they launched a fund, the second fund this year, Mobile World Congress, to look at climate resilience. So this was a fund, and this is one of course, is one of the key SDGs, resilience, etc. So what we do there is we work with our partners and we bring these people on and we select them. So we're doing some selection. So it's not, that's why I don't think it's totally open, because free market would be open. But we're doing some sifting there, and then we give these startups funds. But we don't just say, right, okay, there you are, go off, you're on your own. We actually do provide things like mentoring and expert advice. We network and showcase the examples. And we facilitate partnerships with others and monitor, of course, and the evaluation. And one thing that GSMA is, I think, and those of people who know us and have been to Barcelona, we're a great marketing machine. So what we do is we can promote these. And some of these startups have now become unicorns from our innovation funds. So, that is, it's not a core thing of what we do with GSMA, but it's a very important thing. We don't do it on our own. We cannot do it. It's the industry and our donors who support that. But I wanted to talk on something slightly different, and that would be about how do we accelerate it? Because I know that was one of your questions, and we've heard, if any of you have been in the inauguration ceremony, you know that 5G is here in India. And we know that India is going to push forward very much all these exciting applications. But how are we going to do it? So back in, and is this going to help the SDGs, deliver them? Yes, it will, because we can bring more people on. But what we don't want to do is make sure they're left behind. And we, at the Industry Mobile World Congress, this year, we announced what's called GSMA Open Gateway. And this is a gateway that allows open APIs. So that then means you can accelerate things. So the industry, if you're a developer, you've got an API then, and it goes across all the different platforms, which will then mean, you're working with one operator, but then it's across globally. So that is actually something that we're working on, and I think that's something that's going to be quite transformational. I got an example, for example, SIM swap is a big thing that if anyone's developing an application, they might want to know like a one-time password. That's most applications you sometimes say, well, I need a one-time password. With this, you can do an API to check that that's the right person. So those are things that can help developers. I know you very kindly allow me to sort of elaborate a bit further because I have to go, unfortunately, to another meeting soon with the timetable going on. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of other things, I think, from a policy perspective that I think can help innovation and it's really important. One would be sandboxing, and we've seen that happen a lot. It's quite difficult. It's not easy. It sounds a good thing, but we've seen some really good ones. I think Singapore's a good example. And I think for innovation, particularly in the world of AI, as Asuko said, that's where we're going now, generative AI. We need to be mindful of privacy, all those sorts of things. So actually allowing a sandbox environment to test it in a safe environment where you can then see if it works, let it out to consumers, but it won't go wild. And then that you've not got all the regulatory burdens. Because that leads on to my other point, is you need, and I think you'll talk about that, is policies that enable innovation. We need to protect consumers, but at the same time, we don't want to have policies that cramp innovation. And I think AI is a good example of what we're seeing around the world today. Lots of governments are looking at frameworks for AI or laws for AI, but we need to be, and obviously we need to protect consumers, but we need to ensure things will flourish. So I would say, from a government and policy perspective, we need to ensure things are principle-based rather than, prescriptive. And I think, again, that's something that will help from the innovation side. I do think as well, as I will push this because I represent the mobile industry, I think we need to ensure that the industry can continue to invest and make sure, it's still got a lot more to do. 5G's here in India, but we know, and I'm looking at Magnus over there, there's going to be a lot more investment in the the network to ensure densification, to ensure that these applications on 5G can deliver what we want them to deliver. And, and these, let's relate it back to SDG, a lot of this can be on disaster management, if we can have, and we can monitor things. So we need to ensure that the regulatory environment ensures that the industry can still flourish. Don't let us put loads of taxes on it. Let's make sure we can continue to invest. So that's a bit of a ramble there, but I hope that's answered your question.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the quick, actually you took us through all your 3 questions. I will slow down the audience so we can unpack this, but she has to go. Okay, great. So do stay because I want to come back to you on this. But what I want to say, first of all, I think you brought us back to SDG. You say GSMA is looking at SDG 9 because of the infrastructure, the connectivity. But you do realize that that's not enough. So now you have to go create programs to actually help create more of the solutions on top of what you're creating, which is the baseline of connectivity. Then we have Dr. Lavnish, whose company depends on the internet and your baseline that you create. So already we are talking about the symbiosis, right? You need him, he needs you, and you need the entrepreneurs, and we will need the policymakers because you have a lot of ask from the policymakers, yes, right? Yep. A lot of ask. You also have a lot of ask from our audience. We are at a conference where we see a lot of devices, infrastructure. You talked about cheap devices.
Affordable, not cheap.
Every telco operator I hear, you know what they will say? They say, oh, we have done our job. It's just the devices are too expensive. India is 1.4 plus billion people. If you can figure out how to lower the cost of device here, you can export it everywhere. So what's missing to make this happen, right? Let me just go to
I just want to say one thing, because you mentioned that we're only looking at SDG 9. That's not the case. Yeah. We actually work with all our partner programs. They're looking about how we can increase, how the industry plays a role in each of the 17 SDGs. I was just saying that we're done best on SDG 9. I just wanted to make that point because, and we monitor. Every year we produce a report which says how much progress we've made.
I agree. People, prosperity, planet, everything is connected, right? But I just use that because at the base is the infrastructure where you make the biggest contribution. From that, then people will work on application and services, whether it's emergency telecommunication that you mentioned, or SAP's application, or other young people who comes in SAP's platform, which is more and more open to allow that. That's just what I wanted to bring. But what I want to mention to our audience is, what I hear a lot is market failure from people. There's no such thing as market failure. I would like for you to think about one word, if you take anything from the conversation here, it's about ecosystem failure. And the more that we put that ecosystem is, the more it's in symbiosis, the more the ask and the give of the various stakeholders, then we don't have a weakest link because we have an ecosystem. With that, let me go to our next panelist to help us unpack. I mean, Sanjeev, I think you're right in the Zoom of our 2 stakeholders there from private sector, right? Government, again, they understand it's not about market failure, it's about ecosystem failure, so that's everybody. So can you maybe, what are the key challenges that the government faces in creating and managing an open innovation ecosystem? You talk a lot about your experience doing this. Can you give us a bit of insight on this?
Thank you. So just look at this fact. What are the challenges before the government? You just heard challenges that are being faced by an enterprise. Maybe you representing a certain ecosystem. But when we talk about the government faces enormous challenges. And what kind of challenges? So on one hand, government has to give food to the people. Government has to provide the water also, basic education and health. And on the other hand, government has to ensure that the connectivity is provided. Telecom connectivity is also provided to the people. High-end services is also provided to the people. And as the time is progressing and as we all are evolving, the needs are becoming very complex. So governance in changing time is extremely complex and difficult. Now for the government per se, having given you this background, and what it also suggests is basically this, that government is probably in needs of much more, in much more need of innovation than probably the enterprises. Enterprises provide support to the government. Now the second part of this is, government per se does not government does not, augur confidence in the people that government is for the innovation. So innovation and government in a way does not go along very well. Why? Because government is always, government is always rules, government is always bureaucracies, inflexibilities will be there. And inflexibilities and rigidness, it does not support the innovation. However, but the problem over here is government on one hand has so many problems to be sorted out that requires innovation. Government in itself cannot do much of innovations because of the DNA that government has. I'm not saying it cannot at all do innovation, it can definitely do, and we also do some innovations, but the scope of innovation is reduced to that extent. Now, what government can do over here is to support the innovation ecosystem. And unfortunately, what also happened, which I have seen from close quarter, that government wants innovation to take place, innovation ecosystem should be developed, but in the country, a country like India, where innovation is very much required, but government also sees that innovation ecosystem is not developing, particularly the open innovation system. So therein, government again has to come and then support the innovation ecosystem. Now, supporting ecosystem, how do we support the ecosystem? So one way of supporting the ecosystem is, of course, kick-starting the innovation ecosystem. So let me give you an example. When in the beginning, I told you that I worked in Ministry of Education, and we implemented a policy called Design Innovation Center. So what was the idea behind it? The interesting part, in India, let me tell you one more thing. We have more than 100,000 startups in India. But if you look at the innovation culture, that is, if there is an innovation index, if I say, then the country like India is still nascent in innovation. We have a large innovation ecosystem, but if you look at the developed area for developed countries like, say, developed in sense of innovation, like US, you will see the difference between the culture. So we are still evolving. So that was a challenge before us in the Ministry of Education, that we have a lot of stakeholders working. So there were enterprises working, then we have academia. We have a very rich academia in India. We have a very good academia. And then we also have the startups working, but then they are not collaborating with each other. So the first part that we needed to do is, apart from making the policies and all to kickstart the ecosystem, so how did you do it? So we came up with this policy wherein we said that the collaboration between the academia and the industry and various other stakeholders like investors and all, they should come together. So what government said, that you come together, we'll provide you the money. So we set up Design Innovation Center. So one part of the innovation was creating the innovation, but also the other part of this was to create innovation courses in the syllabus. So we said all the technical education institutions who will be selected for the program has to introduce the innovation in the syllabus. Unless students do not read it, do it, they will not be prepared. So one part that we did was this, that we provided funding to the educational institutions. We also asked them to collaborate with other educational institutions. So for example, IIT Delhi in Delhi, they were made one design innovation center, and then we also asked them, you will be hub, you will be spoke, and there will be 3 hubs. So that way, we created so many design innovation centers that kick-started the process. Though the money was not much, but what it did, it created it kind of started working as catalyst. So in few years, couple of years, we were able to create 80 design innovation center in the country, all in educational institutions. And they started collaborating with the industry. One example that come to my mind, and that is outcome of that, was NIT Trichy was one of the design innovation center. NIT Trichy is one of the premier technical institution in the country. So they started their center, and then there was industry. Trichy has a large number of MSMEs working there. More than 2,000 MSMEs are working there. So one of the MSME came to them, said that we need to do a certain kind of welding, and that welding can only be done by an imported machine. and they had to go to that particular place and get the things done. So they discussed the matter with NIT-Trichy, and then they said, can we not develop it? So NIT-Trichy came to us, we gave money to NIT-Trichy, and the money was basically grant in aid. So we were not expecting anything from them. They worked on the project, and as a result of this, after they're doing innovation, they came up with the product after 1 year, and they actually created the similar machine in India. So that's a perfect example where they can work. So one part, as you suggested, was of course, was to start the innovation ecosystem in country. And after that, there are so many schemes have come in India, which are supported by various departments. I'll not go into too much into it because you have other questions also. And the second part comes to the policy. Now, once we say policy, what policy per se does, it actually binds you. And innovation is something which does not, it cannot be, there should not be anything which binds. But then in the absence of policy, it will not work. So what government is trying to do is try to be more flexible so far as the policy is concerned. Very flexible policies. Some of the policy work that in Government of India has done is to provide the tax incentives to the startups and also for the innovation. Government is also providing certain other benefits so that the innovation progresses, but we are not trying to bind them. We are trying to support them in whatever fashion we can do. So there are two important things. Is one, policy from the government should be very flexible. Policy itself should be innovative, and policy should be updated time and time again because things are changing very fast. Second, government still has a responsibility to keep on supporting the innovation ecosystem by providing funding and various other ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev. This is quite interesting because Dr. Lavnesh mentioned this idea of culture, of collaboration, of the need to really create something that's sustainable, and also the need to completely, how would I say, not just do the job that your company does, but go also help the market, pull the next guy, work with the young the entrepreneurs, all these small and medium businesses are trying to do something for them so they can actually benefit. You mentioned the same thing, by the way. You talked about agility, you talked about flexibility, you talked about policy, you talked about the need to innovate. He mentioned this idea that government policy itself needs to be more agile, right? And also, you mentioned culture, and also you're doing more. So you see, today we live in a world where everything is changing so fast, which was the theme you all mentioned as well. Changing so fast that all of us have to do something, and it's not what we're assigned only to do. And this is what I want to bring up. Again, it goes to this idea. The whole idea is to say there is market failure. Who do we blame? Government, right? Government, right? But that's not true. Everybody has a key role to play, and everybody has an ingredient that they can contribute collectively together to do something. Dr. Lavnesh, do you want to add something? I know you have the microphone, but...
No, I just wanted to, I was very curiously listening to when you said that government is constrained in terms of its own innovation, we do. Surprisingly, I think we are in a changing world, even that is getting challenged now. If you go to Japan's digital agency, their logo on the wall is government as a startup. So that thought process also is beginning to change. Australia said that, hey, we need to ensure that across the government pillars, there has to be a unification. The government first led the whole of government approach. Typically what happens is the innovation projects will then become centipedes, who doesn't know which of its leg is moving and which is not once you get into the siloed. So they kind of created this, and they led the whole of government approach. So there are now examples appearing. India, the digital public infrastructure is our innovation coming out of. So there are examples appearing which will probably soon change this thought process also, that probably government has a constraint on innovation, it can further push the innovation.
Let me just add
Yes,
in.
go ahead.
When I was deliberating, I also mentioned that I'm not saying that government does not do the innovations. What my idea was that government has its own structure, and that structure actually that structure actually a kind of put a block on doing innovation. So if you compare government with some organization, so an organization is far more capable of doing innovation than the government. And then I said, because though the government is constrained by because of certain things which I mentioned, but what government can do is to come up with the innovative policies, and government can then support the ecosystem. So I'm not saying government has not been doing innovation. Please don't take me otherwise. What I'm saying is India has also done so many innovations. We have also done. So coming up with a policy like Design Innovation Center itself is an innovation.
Yeah.
What I was comparing government with a private entity. So government and private entity, whenever on any given day, if you compare them, the capacity to innovate will definitely be different. That was my point.
The point that I had, I was also trying to validate that only. I was trying to say that today many governments are becoming industry and many industries are becoming government from that matter. So the change in thought process is happening.
I like that because do we have national states anymore, given some big companies who may completely go over any kind of boundary, right? That's a rhetorical question, okay? Just to bring your point that, things are changing, and actually it's all about mindset, because if you run an organization, every organization has a bureaucracy. It's just that one works better than the other because of incentive, disincentive, but we need bureaucracy because we need specialists. So it's really about, I've seen this, I work 18 years in Silicon Valley, and every time there is a new CEO, a new search change. I call it the shirts are changing, but the people are the same. And the mindset may not change, right? Because the new people comes in, they may even get polluted with the old mindset. Just some comment there. But let's move on to our next group of panelists. Dr. Sethi, I think, how can academia support the creation of open innovation and innovative AI ecosystem in India and the region? And what are the main problems you see that needs to be addressed? Now, we cover everybody. Remember the entrepreneurs? You are responsible for them now because you're the one who is actually training and putting the knowledge. If we miss them there, we're not going to have the future we want. Please expand on this for us.
Absolutely, Mohammed. Thank you for that question. So academia has always been is one of the components of the triple helix of innovation. And what is academia good at? I mean, academia is really good at solving some really complex challenges. That's what we do typically as researchers and organizations that we work on deep problems. So, and open is in our DNA as well, because academia is very open in its research outputs and publications and so on. So I think we are very much, and what the way it is changing right now is that academia has woken up to the fact that our research needs to really be more outcome oriented as well. We are connecting more, we are collaborating more with industry. And this was, for example, seen during the COVID time. I keep bringing back healthcare because that's what I work on. But in other areas as well, researchers and academia really stood up to the challenge during the COVID-19 time. The kind of the pace at which the industry and academia worked together to develop solutions was astounding. So I think the role of academia is also changing. In a fast-moving world, we are also becoming that a blur between esoteric research that never gets to see the light of the day to really outcomes that can be taken to market quickly. And as you rightly said, this is not only being done through training and entrepreneurs, but also picking up the right research questions. And I think in India, we are seeing that shift a lot. The tech stack of India, for example, relies hugely upon academic innovations as well, especially in the digital health, the health stack of India. Includes components like AI, generative AI, and all of that, where academia is playing a lot of role. Our own institute and our own organization, for example, I lead the Center of Excellence of Healthcare at IIIT Delhi, where our focus is on digital health and how to transition AI-based solutions into into healthcare settings. So during the COVID time, we deployed numerous solutions for COVID-19, but going forward, I'll just bring up one example. That's also important for SDG achievement. What we cannot measure, we cannot solve. And the key thing there is data. We have to measure with data, and then we have to learn with data to project where we might be going. That's where AI comes in. So in one of our works that we did with ICMR, which is the one of the premier medical research, the Indian Council of Medical Research, premier medical research institutions in India, we looked at 20 different organizations, hospitals across India, spread across India, and looking at their data on how are we doing on antibiotic resistance. Because even though COVID-19 pandemic has gone now, we are still faced with the next pandemic, which is already here, which is antibiotic resistance. So we know that by 2050, it is one of the key killers, major challenges that the world is facing. So since these centers were collecting a lot of data, we put together these data and built AI models to basically understand what has been happening over the last 7 years. Where are we headed? And how does it actually connect to the attainability of sustainable development goals? And now if you think about it, typically how do we address this is in silos. We don't connect these dots. We don't connect antibiotic resistance dot with SDG goals and how are we doing in other areas. Now with this open data becoming available, we were able to actually pull these in together and create for the first time real evidence that unless we solve the challenge of carbapenem resistance in India, for example, the SDG achievement, not only for SDG 3, which is health, but other SDGs as well, is going to be very challenging. So academia has this kind of thought process of pulling together different complex pieces of information together and developing these complex frameworks and then putting this information out openly. The second area where academia can really work very efficiently is to create these open data ecosystems and open innovation ecosystems in forms of data architectures. And that's what we are also working in. We have a Delhi Science and Technology cluster, which is just one of the many clusters that the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office supports. And this cluster has 6 verticals, not just healthcare. It has verticals like sustainability, sustainable mobility, and then verticals like air pollution, challenges that Delhi faces, water management, waste management, and so on. And at the bottom of all of these is technology, digital, and digital public goods. So I think, and then this cluster, academia is the key. It is housed at IIT Delhi, but then it also partners with organizations like IIIT Delhi, Ashoka University, AIMS, New Delhi, JNU, and so on. So we are actually creating, and then of course with the industry. So we are creating these open ecosystems where we can dovetail solutions as actions that can be outcome oriented and can be dovetailed into the delivery mode. So I think I'll pause there to just highlight some of these new roles that academia is also playing. And of course, with support from the government in collaboration with the industry. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I think this is quite interesting. You're all saying the same thing, complexity, mindset. We have to shift from this pure research to the practical research. And you actually started to sort of kickstart our next level of discussion, which will be about these platforms like DPIs that you actually will accelerate. Janet mentioned the acceleration that's needed as well on their side with the open gateway, but this is actually the next set of questions. But before that, again, thank you for that. I think that you have such a critical role to mold the mind of the future. All these problems that we see, and there's so many that are unresolved, only they can solve it. And just for you to think about before we end this, how can we get more of these young minds to actually solve the problem? With that, I'd like to go to our last panelist here, Mr. Kapoor, UNFPA. I work with UNFPA, you know this. And UNFPA has a very, very important role to play for those who don't know. If you talk about, for example, sexual and reproductive health maternal health, some of these is UNFP. It's a key SDG. It can break that generation from doing anything, or it can help them. Now, my question for you is simple. How can we develop and leverage open innovation clusters to accelerate achievement of the SDGs? He started talking about clusters, so we know clusters will do something. Now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mohammed. So thank you, fellow colleagues, talking about the whole ecosystem, the collaboration, the partnerships. I'll talk more on perspective of from the SDGs. If you see out of 17 goals, the 17th one talks about the partnerships, which is inclusive partnerships, which requires, which is a critical pillar, or I would say the foundation of achieving those SDGs. And if you talk about the SDGs, now we talk about like health, climate change, gender equity. These are very complex challenges and the problems. And single agency or 2 or 3 agencies can't solve it. We require that open innovation cluster. We require that partnerships to come forward. And that's how we are leveraging in India. Like, for example, I can give some of the examples. We partner with academia, we partner with startups, we partner with the whole, the policymakers, and we work with the government day and out. So what brings the difference here? What the difference comes out is like how we work. We are opening the experimentation models to see how we can solve those fundamental challenges. Like, for example, detecting high-risk pregnancies at very, very early stages so that at least we can avoid those maternal deaths. Working with youth to fulfill their potential in terms of education, digital literacy, and thirdly, talking about the women in terms of how we can make the internet and the mobile devices meaningful so that they can use that, they can adopt that, which can actually result in reducing the gender divide. So these are the very complex challenges when we talk about, and to solve this, United Nations Population Funds comes from the perspective of giving that platform, wherein we bring the funds, we bring the right mindsets, we bring the challenges by working with the government, we define those things where we need to work. What we require is the system, the ecosystem, the value chain, which we can bring on board, work together and move forward. Like, for example, in 2021, we launched a hackathon, national hackathon, which was focusing on to reduce or to eliminate the gender violence. Now, we were surprised to see more than 500 submissions, which came just from the India itself. And I mean, the kind of solutions we got was astonishing. And some of them we are already adopting, bringing them on board to see what kind of solutions we need to build, how we can bring them to the field. We are actually the bridge. If you see, we work with the government, we work on the field, we work with the programs. So for us, we design those programs. We bring those challenges in the front, and then we leverage the ecosystem. And today, if you see, our Prime Minister talks about the India startup ecosystem is one of the 3rd largest ecosystem in the world. Now we're bringing those value chains, we're bringing those ecosystem on board day and out to see how we can mitigate those challenges. So that's how UNFPA and the UN agency plays a role. And we do understand, I mean, we are also not perfect, but if you see, the United Nations has moved to a different paradigm, which is called as a quintet of change, which talks about the 5 key pillars: data, foresight, digitalization, innovation, and behavioral science. These are the 5 key pillars which UN is adopting now to move to that level so that at least we can fast track to work towards our SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is interesting. Again, complexity. And you mentioned a couple of keys. I think 10 years ago it'll be crazy for a UN agency to talk about working with startup ecosystems, right? Now it's like a cool thing to do, right? And I mean, that's quite fascinating that we see this mindset shift. We see this idea to create platforms, clusters, but this is not happening fast enough. I mean, we all agree this is not happening fast enough. The young talents are out there, they're looking at you, they're restless. They're really restless, right? They are our futures. When we retire, they have to provide for us. Now, this next round of questions, and Janet, you started touching on this a bit, which is like, what's happening out there to accelerate this, right? Maybe I'll start with, again, our first speaker, which is to say, Dr. Lavnesh. Now, can you build now on what you built before? How can we create mechanisms and platforms conducive to open innovation ecosystem to solve for our growing socioeconomic problems and our youth who really, really needs to save us? We need to save them now so they can save us in the future. The floor is yours.
Okay, so when it comes to SDGs, I think one important aspect is in addition to the two perspectives that we are looking at it from, one is the responsibility, second is the impact if we don't achieve the SDGs. We also need to build in the third narrative of the opportunity that this brings in. I think that will fast track the adoption at least. Now, if I take the example of climate change SDG as one, if you talk about responsibility, all of us are aware that majority of the emissions will come from this Asia, and we have in terms of the impact, we have a disproportionate impact on the overall growth and GDP vis-a-vis the other parts of the world. But when it comes to the opportunity, we did this study with BCG and the World Economic Forum. We found out that just by this, at least for the business side, there is an opportunity of $4.3 trillion. Now, and second, there is an additional employment generation of 133 million new kind of jobs when we actually put this. Now, why I'm giving these numbers and why I'm giving this narrative establishes at least the what's in it for me for many stakeholder groups. Okay, I need to get attracted because there is something in me. I think one part that needs to change, and that's where the role of technology in ensuring this platformization of this mechanism. And the experience shows that there are 3 stages that we pass on, and most of us are at stage 1 when I'm talking about. The first stage obviously is the data transparency. What he mentioned, you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So as you get data transparency, I think second stage onwards is when we actually start creating the insights and actually making. And finally, third stage is when I involve my ecosystem partners into the digital piece. Now, more importantly is to fast track this, what do I need to do in terms of pillars of support? I think one important pillar of maybe policy or a program or the practice is ensuring the interoperability of different innovation ecosystems, right? So these are currently in silos, so standards and interoperability would form a big one. Obviously, all of us know that the regulatory ecosystem to promote, and we have done a fantastic job in India on that in terms of actually facilitating that, and to support this, I think one important area we want to cover is the whole skilling, capacity building, and reskilling. And if we want to think of innovation in today's context, in my view, we should add learning. We should also add unlearning also. So because that's the way things will change. A strategy to unlearn also is equally important. The focus on infrastructure is another pillar that will actually fast track this particular thing. So these are the kind of and obviously as we move into the governance, the security, the things that Mr. Sharma talked about, all would be the important support pillars to the fast track process as we move forward.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that last quote about learning and unlearning. Actually, one of my favorite, author is Alvin Toffler, and he basically say the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can read and write, but it will be those who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. So if we have a lot of people in the lower part of the economy, it's not digital, and we start replacing productivity, you cannot stop it. You have to be able to reskill those stakeholders. The other thing you say that's quite important is opportunity. How can we make the opportunity big? How can we create that interoperability so everybody focus on that opportunity? Leveraging the example of the India stack that we know about, all these stacks in different domains, I think that's quite key. And you know, and of course, you know, partnership to get there, right? Policy is the key, right? Because I'm told often, I say, people don't move until the government say, we will do this, right? Because government can make it or break it. And if government does not, there are bigger forces at play who will basically change the system, right? Now, I would like to go to you, Janet. Now, I know you may have run out of time, but what do you want to tell us based on everything you heard?
Well, thank you very much for letting me have another go, because I know I said I had to go straight away. I'm looking around the audience here, and I see a table of young people, so I'd be interested to know from that group of people, what makes them, you know, we've got different segments, for example, for, you know, are you entrepreneurs? Do you want to join a large company and work that way to do something? And what is the driver, and how do we link that driver to the social development goals? What we've found when we've had our innovation fund, it's young people who've wanted to deliver to these SDGs. They're very, you know, passionate about, you know, doing something about the climate. So I think when we look about the innovation ecosystems, we have to look at different segments as well. So, you know, I've talked about the donor-funded ones where we've seen, again, a lot of young people come in there and they start and they do things. You know, you mentioned about, very interested to hear about the work you're doing. I think there's a thing that I'm hearing is that we're probably all doing a lot and probably don't know what we're each doing. So there is probably some collaboration amongst ourselves so that we can help others. Then I just wanted to, you know, there are the big enterprise solutions, which we also must think as part of the ecosystem and innovation. And that's where I mentioned really like the open gateway, which is a different scale altogether, really. We're looking at then, you know, the sort of large corporate, you know, big companies being able to innovate quickly. And instead of, you know, creating the same thing over and over again, using the open APIs, we've heard about 5G, and a lot of people are saying, well, you know, 5G is fast on my phone. Do I really need it? You know, a lot of where the new use cases are going to be are in the enterprise side of things. And these will, you know, in health, which can help deliver, you know, on each of the goals. I think there's enterprise solutions that can go there. So I'm quite excited about the idea of the open gateway. You know, it's a good initiative. We can work that together. We started off at the beginning of the year with 18 operators. We've now got 31. And that doesn't sound a lot, but a lot of these are very big operators, so they're covering a large group. So here in India, we have the 2 major 5G operators are in that. So that then allows that global piece. So my point, which may be a bit rambling, I was saying, let's segment it a little bit in different types of groups for innovation. Also, how can we learn from each other? You know, like on this panel, which I found absolutely fascinating to hear what others are doing so that we can perhaps, you know, collaborate better and easier.
Well, thank you so much. And I think hopefully the young people will ask some questions later. But what I take is actually quite critical, right? We don't know what we don't know, right? We need to start knowing, right? This is actually where the complexity comes in. We have to segment so we can focus on the problem. And then actually open innovation is about democratizing the access of technology, because technology is not the root cause of change, right? Technology is just an enabler. So it's about creating these enabling systems where people can come in on top and solve the problem that they solve uniquely in their communities. So how do we more of that? Well, we have the likes of India Stack. On top of the stack, you attract the stakeholders, and then they start playing, if you will, to solve the problem. Now, I think that that's really, we're right where we are. We're a bit running out of time, but I think we're okay. Mr. Sanjeev, I think, how do you accelerate digital innovation, right? So we're talking about a young person or from ideation to commercialization. We see a lot of platforms doing this, but in your opinion, how can we accelerate this?
So, acceleration of digital innovation also requires other type of innovation as well as the digital innovation also requires, I'm again telling you from the government perspective, see, it requires the culture in the country. So, my fellow panelist was telling me, I'll start with an example. My fellow panelist, he is from Triple IT, he represents the academia, and he said, now we have started thinking about doing the research which is relevant to the society. So when I was in Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Education has 150 plus autonomous institutions. These institutions comprises IITs, NITs, IIMs, Triple ITs also. And what was the challenge before us? And Ministry of HRD, Ministry of Education fund them very liberally. So what was the challenge before us? So a lot of research was happening. I mean, a lot of research was happening, but then outcome was not such something which were actually propelling India to the next level. So after thinking a lot on this, then we started saying that whatever research we are doing, it should be socially relevant. So we started giving them the funds, saying that if you do research this way, we will be getting the funds. We asked them to go and meet the industry. We encourage industry to come to the academia. So that the example which I gave you earlier regarding the welding machine, and there are several such examples started happening. So culture, so doing this in some of the institutions, it has actually picked up. But the culture still does not exist that to that extent which we would like to have. The changes in the culture regarding the startup, there was some discussion going on. So when I joined the Ministry of Education in 2013, so what was the parameter of placement? I mean, parameter of success of the courses was the placement. So in IITs, there was this, how many students got placed and what is their package. So in IITs, top NITs, 100% of them will be placed, and then their packages are very good. Now, what has changed over in last 10 years because of the continuous emphasis by the Ministry of Education? Now the changes have happened is that only 60-70% of them get placed through the campus. Remaining 20-30% actually go and do their startup. So that is the change that is happening. But the question that we earlier said, is it happening fast enough? Is it really changing? So for the country like India, and this lesson is for the developing country also, that we should actually develop the culture and develop the culture very fast. As we have been telling that innovation is happening very fast. Things are changing very fast. So if we do not catch bus quickly enough, we will miss. So therefore, government, and then what is the role of government? The role of government is you have to put in place a mechanism by providing fund, kick-starting the ecosystem. And as I was telling you earlier when I was deliberating, that Ministry of Education started one such a scheme, and then Department of Science and Technology started another scheme, Department of Biotechnology started, and then several such schemes started, including the Department of Telecommunications. So now the thing is, now that has become a challenge also. The thing is, government has understood this very well under the current leadership of current Prime Minister, that innovation has to be done. So several such schemes came. Now so government is try to create the culture. I'm just giving one example. I'm not touching upon other aspects because we don't have time. Now another challenge that it has created is, now we have so many schemes running parallelly, and they have commonality. So as a result of this, the synergy which should be created out of this scheme is not happening. Now government has also come up with a centralized funding that will be under the Department of Science and Technology. All such funds have been combined, and it is placed in Department of Science and Technology, and they will be providing the funding for research and development and innovation. Recently it has been done. So culture should be developed. Government is trying to do it, but I think from the industry side also, they should also come up fast and do this thing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think, if I just summarize quickly, it's about focusing on shifting the incentive to social problems. It's more on really the experimentation that needs to happen more and more. You talked about actually strategic foresight, which is really because you say there are too many problems happening at the same time. Can we anticipate? This is where strategic foresight come in, to know what you don't, you don't know what you don't know, so you want to sort of paint some scenario and you can plan for it because the insurance for doing it is cheaper for you now. But we know this is happening, so we need to move fast. Now, I think to you, Dr. Sethi, what do you need to ensure that this is accelerated on your side?
No, thank you. I think Mr. Sharma brought up very key points here. I'll start with two. I'll be very brief with this. I think the role of academia and what do we need to do differently is to actually train people more at the interdisciplinary interface. You have brought up complexity many times. What we are now seeing is that technology for the sake of technology itself is still good, but more and more, as you said, people are asking about what is the societal need that is being solved here. Application-oriented outcomes are being emphasized more and more. So we are seeing that there's a lot of, and the gap is that we don't have people who are trained at these interfaces. We have data scientists, we have healthcare professionals, but they're not the same people, right? And you can extend this to any pick your field of choice. So the key thing that we need to do now, where we need more support, is to enable such kind of programs going forward. With the new education policy in India, this is changing fast. So we are already seeing that change. I'm very proud to say that we are actually one of the capacity accelerator network hubs for data for health and climate for social impact that is supported by data.org, where our goal is basically to train we call it the CAN hubs, to train 1 million purpose-driven data scientists by 2030. Right, and this is not an individual goal, not just one organization. We are a part of it, out of the 3 hubs in India. But you can see that data, health, climate, and social impact appearing together as a title in the same education program, and this is targeted at postgraduate professionals, is happening for the first time, but this change is happening. And what my challenge is that, for example, I come from healthcare. I don't see doctors who understand health data, right? But this is the change that we need to deliver if we want to really see the future of healthcare come up in a very strong way going forward. So that is point number 1. Secondly, I think a very key important point that you mentioned, support from the government in terms of application-oriented things. The way I see it is that some people are already doing that. And by way of natural selection, as it happens in evolution, those will be the people who will get benefited through these schemes. So that is one way. But how can, for example, governments also nudge organizations or researchers who are doing basic science, and they need to be nudged in that direction, right? So not every researcher is an application-oriented researcher. So I think that's where we need more hand-holding from, let's say, both government and industry coming together to give them use cases. As you were saying, the use cases get generated as something. So my research group has always been working towards applications because I am a clinician by background. I always look at outcomes to begin with, but not everybody does that. So I think that's where we need to have this tiered approach of also mentoring organizations towards outcomes. And I'll pause there.
Thank you so much for that little bit of that insight, that peeling that layer. And that layer, I'll tell you what that layer speaks to me about. Interdisciplinary studies more. You're doing it now, but you need the doctors to be doing it too, because something is missing. And more importantly, you want to train those 1.4 million people in AI today. Actually, you needed them yesterday, not today. And what's the next technology that's coming? Do you understand what you need to train today for 5, 10 years from now? I leave that as a rhetorical question, but I'd like to come to you, Saeed. How, basically, can you share an example of the collaboration or sort of successful initiatives that UNFP is doing in this sense for SDG 3 and 5?
Yeah, sure. There are some of them where we have used the innovation ecosystem of India. Like one of them in the programs with the Ministry of Health, we are supporting the National Midwifery Training Institutes in coming up with the next cadre of midwives who can support the health. Now in this, what we are doing is we are trying to, apart from the operationalization support to NMTIs, we're also testing and experimenting whether technology can help in designing the simulation trainings for midwives in terms of how complications can be managed at timely. So this is one of the testing and experimentation models we are building from the last year. And it has been very successful because we brought in academia, we brought in startups, we brought in fact, the bigger industries to be part of that to help us understand the value of technology simulations there. What the difference and the key piece in this whole ecosystem is about, we have technology, we have innovation, we work on the user-centered design models. It's important that how to plug these pieces together. We bring that piece in terms of that for whom we are designing, what is the purpose of designing, and how it is going to help. That are the three key factors we work around. And then what we require is the innovation, the digitalization models, the center design policies, and the kind of right people to come on board. Like my colleague said, it's not about, like when we talk about doctors, we talk about data scientists, it's like who is plugging them in between? What is bridging them together? That's the key factor. That will actually change the whole ecosystem going forward. And that will help us to meet those pressing challenges. Like in another example I can quote is, with one of the state governments of Odisha, we are actually set up a digital assistive tech innovation lab, which actually invites all the agencies who have been, all organizations who have been working around assistive tech to come on board, set up an experimentation model with people with disability to see what works, what not works, so that at least we can give that the feedback together and we can modify those solutions so that it can goes to the actual users. And so these are some of the examples which we work. So it's more important that how we bringing those right people on board, right industries on board, and how we bridging them together and then supporting them. And one of the key factors here is the appetite of having that risk to do that innovation. Because normally the talk comes as like, if it fails, who is going to take the blame? What is happening to the fund if it fails? So it's there, that's where the key piece lies, that we need to have more risk appetite to see, yes, it fails, fine. We can document it, we can learn from it, and we can move forward towards modifying and taking the right path. So it's about how we use those pieces, how we plug those systems, and how we actually leverage the value of ecosystem. So I'll summarize it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'll quickly add one point here. So regarding the creating the culture for innovation, see, I have also observed in my experience that actually the age has something to do with innovation. So whenever the most the most innovative products have been created by the students in the colleges. And so what has been done by Government of India? Government of India set up thousands of Atal Tinkering Lab. Atal Tinkering Labs are set up in the schools for the children studying. I mean, in India, school means up to class 12th is called a school, and then we call it college. So in those schools, thousands of schools, Atal Tinkering Lab have been set up by the Government of India. In the morning, Honorable Prime Minister also mentioned about Atal Tinkering Lab. And what it does is it allows the students in schools to, there is a lab created, they can go there, they can do whatever they want. And in our language, we say jod, tod, fod. So they do all this. And as a result of this, they actually created some wonderful thing. So that is one thing that is actually creating the culture in the country, right from though numbers have to be much larger. Second point, which you just mentioned, innovation has to come out from the mindset. And as a result of this, the scheme which I mentioned earlier also, we asked the institutions to introduce the courses on innovation so that the students, while doing engineering, when I was doing my engineering, I never knew what is innovation is. But the young people who are going through those courses, they know what is innovation is. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think to your point, it's about the plug. You have to plug. Do we want generalists anymore? Do we want specialists anymore? It seems like we need a whole new kind of crazy people who learns everything, right? By the way, this is me. Some people ask me sometimes why you have 4 or 5 degrees. I say that's why. Because I'm curious about a lot of things. And there isn't enough time to learn and to do all of those, but it helps connect really the dots. I think this is super critical. Now, Dr. Lavnish, I think I mean, you heard everything, right? So now, how is digital really linked to the creation of this ecosystem, particularly when it comes to enabling the participation of all stakeholders? And what do you need to get this experimentation right in our volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world?
Okay, so when all of us accept that today we are in volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous at world, at least from a geopolitical. One strategic direction that probably I can think of is we have viewed enough this whole innovation piece as a vertical, right? Now is the time to address the volatility and the uncertainty wherein innovation has to become a horizontal now across that. And different countries actually are addressing these requirements differently. Some are addressing through a local capacity and resilience and innovation ecosystem. Our own digital public infrastructure. Now we are coming out with the open network for digital commerce, which will actually superbly positioned to actually answer some of the uncertainties that we may be faced. There are some other countries who are actually putting in innovation as a part of the bilateral and digital trade agreements that they are actually bringing in. So there are different mechanisms that are being followed, but the underlying theme is, this now needs to acquire a horizontal shape, then a verticalized, and some of this, and once we make it horizontal, the stakeholder participation would actually automatically get ensured. The example that Mr. Sharma gave about Atal Tinkering Lab, fantastic initiative of getting so many stakeholder involved. Now, when they started Atal Tinkering Labs, it was not that it was only government. They offered it to the industry. Hey guys, come, if you want to take Atal Tinkering Labs and help students with use cases in this school, people like us went and adopted few Atal Tinkering Labs, trained their teachers. So the stakeholder participation at that stage, actually, so that level of preparedness, I think earlier we start, better it is in the world that we are actually moving to.
Thank you so much. Janet, what do you need to do to take this away, to solve this problem?
Do I need to take the mic? That's a very difficult question.
1 minute. 1 minute.
1
How
minute.
do we solve this problem? How do we have more open innovation ecosystem out there accelerating the SDGs?
Well, I think we've made a couple of points, and I just think measuring, I think is a very important point. And we measure our progress on SDGs, and I think that's something that we need to do. And you say, oh, that's a bit boring, but I think if you don't measure it, you don't know how far you're getting with it. I think we need to collaborate more and understand. Again, a point you made, Mo, was, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, I've learned a lot today on this panel. So there's something missing somewhere on how can we work together. And I think, we talk about whole of government. We need to talk about how do we work together in these, we're all doing something and can learn from that. So maybe ITU, there's something there for you to take away where we can collaborate more and use that as a repository. Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Sharma?
Yeah. One is, of course, you should provide the platform. Second is support by the government in terms of funding. Third could be collaboration between the countries. And fourth would be to create kind of centralized database for the startups. And lastly, having a knowledge network, national knowledge network or national innovation network, wherein you actually allow people to collaborate. I mean, all innovators. I think these are the prescription from my side.
Thank you. And you, Dr. Sethi?
I think everything has been said by my co-panelists, but yeah, so if I had to prioritize, I think platforms for making the connects, where we can find the relevant stakeholders to collaborate with, and make those, for example, the clusters have those kind of platforms in India, where the industry can actually post their relevant use cases and the academia can step up. But I think that needs to be done on a much broader scale in a much more impactful manner. of course, capacity building and technology is assumed.
Thank you, Sahil.
Well, I think it's all said about everything. It's from my perspective, it's also about transition to scale. We do pilots, we test out things, but it's important to even scale that, because that's where the real value lies and how we can achieve those goals. So I think that was one of the missing pieces I thought I can plug in.
Well, thank you very much. I do want to take 1 minute. I know my colleagues are pressing me, but we will take our time because this problem is complex and we'll override them. I do want to take questions from the audience, please. Especially the young people, please. This is your opportunity. You have some very powerful people on this podium. And I will make sure they're nice to you, okay? Questions? I can also do this way. I can walk around and ask somebody a question and put you on the spot.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really very insightful. Though the moderator asked questions from the young generation, I'm not that young, but I have some of this, I'm working in this sector. My question is that when we are talking about the innovation, entrepreneurship, and for SDGs, I think the green component is one of them which we have not discussed in that discussion. So while we are doing the innovation, we have to look at the green component of it. So that's number one. The second one, which I feel like, that there are lots and lots of new enterprise are developed. For each and every technical institute, there are lots of new innovations coming up. But how we can ensure the sustainability of those innovative enterprises that are coming up. That's, I think, one thing we need to now focus on, because as many of you have already mentioned that lots and lots of new ideas coming up, but how many are really sustainable? What that we need to focus on now to sustain those enterprises and then to scale it up. And especially India, with this the highest number of youth population, I think we have a very sweet spot for that, and we're looking forward for the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question before I turn it to the audience.
There are a few more questions. We
yes.
can collect them.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi.
So please pick the question you want.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Rohan. I'm an entrepreneur as well. Most important question with Mr. Sethi, actually, when I was hearing this, you talked about that 1 million data scientists you've been, and 3 organizations have been trying to develop. And the most important question was, you said that use cases are being developed to get them on board and expand their the thoughts and horizons on what can they develop. Now, important thing is, I'm at a junction where I've already sold 2 startups. I am another starting a 3rd one. Here, the most important variation or the gap which I found was, right now the idea is to develop or in fact bridge the people from tier 2 or tier 3 cities, because personally I went into many government schools, and the idea was these people are just brilliant. They have just enormous amount of energy to grasp anything quickly. Now the question is, how do we bridge the tier 2, tier 3 of India with the relevant use cases which they are regularly dealing in their personal lives, and try to get that zeal, energy, adding the skill into it and creating something useful. So this is something which has been going on for the last, say, around 4 or 5 years, and we're just trying to develop something on this. Government is doing too good into it. Atal Tinkering Labs are basically the foundation stones which we can see as developing. But important thing is it needs a bigger, a larger scale. So I'll like some thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Hello, Professor Rajkaran here from Sri Balaji University, Pune.
Currently, we have established a entrepreneurship development and incubation center that is called Srujan, and I have my students with me right now. So my question is, I think that panel went unanswered, is that where students have lots of ideas which can really fill the gap or will help in achieving sustainable development goals. But these ideas, to make these ideas sustainable or these ideas financially viable, we need a lot of support from government, or we can say agencies like UN or ITU, so like all these agencies. So to create this kind of ecosystem, what can be done at our university level, or what can be done from academia?
Okay, one last question in the middle. That's a lot of questions. Let's take one last, and I will stay around after the one last. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aman Srivastav, and I'm consultant young professional at Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. So my question to you today is, like, in India, the private sector's contribution towards R&D and innovation has been stagnant over the past decade at around 37%. So why do you think, what's the reason behind this, and how can we change this? Is IP-backed finance a solution for this? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who wants to take a question? Yes. Go ahead.
I think on your point on the green in innovation, a very valid point. That's what I said. We need to look at both sides. That is what you mentioned is innovating so that we are green. That is what I am mentioning is the other side of the coin is green for innovation also, right? So once I start becoming green, there is an automatic innovation that sets in, and I'm actually looking at it. So we need to look at it both. I don't necessarily see that we are not going there. We are going there. Now the speed and the rate, you can always question, but then we are moving towards that, at least in terms of, if I talk about awareness, sensitization, the practices, the regulatory ecosystem, in terms of financing, in terms of reporting, in terms of the business responsibility. In India, we have BRSR, number of things that are being done, which are actually moving, and the renewable energy that you hear with India pioneering the 500 gigawatts, number of initiatives there. Maybe we need to give some time for this to actually crystallize and start giving the impact. On your second point on how do you motivate sustainability per se, I can talk about the business perspective. I think we have spoken enough of how do you become profitably sustainable. I think now you need to become sustainably profitable. So that's the difference that you will come to as we move forward, and that is where the general business direction is happening. Maybe again the speed we need to accelerate, and as we see one implementing with others following very soon in terms of the replication, this will become a movement that you and me will find it difficult to control.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, just very briefly on the green piece, the green question. The mobile industry is actually signed up to net zero. So we've actually got a program in place, and I'm looking at some of our vendor over there. They are actually at the forefront of making sure the equipment that drives the network is greener. Go and have a look at Ericsson's stand, for example. You'll see some things there. So I think, again, what we do is we measure. So I keep going back to measurement, but I just would, if you would like, we have a report. It's freely available on our website, so you can see what we're doing and how we're trying to make sure that our innovations and our growing out the network is done in a sustainable way.
Thank you, Dr.
Sorry,
Sethi.
if I can add, even in the digital world, we are now coming out with solutions. Look at us as a company. Green Ledger is a product that we have. In addition to your top line, bottom line, you are measuring green line also through the green the digital solution. So that also is emerging. So let's be hopeful we are on the right track. Yeah.
So the AI question is for you for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. So for that question, 1 million purpose-driven data scientists, not just data scientists. And when we say purpose-driven data scientists, it actually just means that the purpose can be local, right? So what you're trying to do with whosoever you're working with on the ground, and they're trying to solve a problem which is very local. Now that can be a use case that can, for example, uh, catalyze some of this learning, because learning data science or AI by itself, is good, for itself is good. But if you can actually bring in a use case that you can demonstrate has solved a local problem, that is with a purpose, right? So I think the way forward is to really to create these kind of use cases, as I've been saying. Few examples that I can give in that direction is, as you said, that I mean, today in the age of MOOCs, right, where our programs are hybrid or MOOCs, so anybody can really attend these and can join these online if they have the connectivity. They can learn online and so on. Even the project demos and projects can be designed and mentored online. So the only limitation as of now is having good example use cases where you can measure that it has actually created an impact on the ground. And that, I would say, I keep coming back to that, is key, because we have some really cool questions as you're professor, and as researchers we like to ask. But if we can actually also measure that, is that outcome going to have an impact, and what that impact might be. So very welcome to you to bring on those use cases, and we can have a conversation offline to see if those kind of questions can be sorted.
Sanjeev, I think the funding question for you, thank you, Dr. Sethi. The funding question is for you. You raised it earlier, in fact.
Yeah, so there was one part of tinkering lab in your question, and then other question which you raised basically was how do we go ahead so far as the innovation is concerned. So India is a very big country. So this is one big challenge before the government. So whenever we make the policy, numbers and the size and breadth of the country always pose challenges. So I'll just give you one small example. Right now in India, our 4G coverage is excellent. We are covering so many villages. And how many villages do we have? 640,000 villages in the country. And when the Prime Minister said you have to provide connectivity to 100% of them, and we said, sir, we are providing connectivity to 95%. Then he said, please go for 100%. That 5% alone is 40,000 villages. So you look at the size of the country, and that's a big challenge. Well, we are providing that also. We have started working on this. So size is big challenge. So when I was telling about Adult Tinkering Lab also, I was telling there has to be many more. But the government has limited resources. The government is, of course, has got resources, but then we have a resource. The government has to take care of the person who is sitting beside the road, and government has to take care of the person who is studying in IIT also. So it's a very large. So resources constraint is there. Government is doing its own bit. I think the industry should also come forward. And so far as your question is concerned regarding the innovation, government has floated so many schemes which I indicated you earlier. So there is IDEX, Defense, then Ministry of HRD. Now DST has come up, as I suggested you, with the consolidated fund. Department of Telecom is also running some schemes. And you know, the hackathon, national hackathon is organized by the government of India. So these are some platforms which you can use. Please go to the various sites. If you have a good thing, good proposal for you, submit it to them, try and make it out. I think you will be successful. Thank you very much.
So I think it goes to the question, we don't know what we don't know. They don't know where to find the resources. And to my second point, this is about ecosystem failure. Government is not responsible for everything. Private sector has resources of all kind. You have resources, we have resources. And that goes to the question about private sector contribution. They're trying their best, but I am sure everybody can do more. You have the last point, and then I will wrap up. And apologies again for taking all the time, but I think this is important for the future of the world.
See, I'll talk about the sustainability if one of the participants talked about sustainability of the solutions. It's important about talking about transition to scale. We have to think from the other lens. It is not about only funding, it is also about innovative financing. how we can leverage the innovative financing into the models. That becomes the key to make the solution sustainable. And considering deploying solutions and innovations in India with such a larger landscape, each state is itself like a country. And you can test these solutions, you can see what is the outcome, you can measure those outcomes, define those right KPIs, and think from the perspective of innovative financing, where the private sector, the UN agencies, the government will come into picture and support the solutions to scale at large. We have fantastic examples which have been during the COVID, which have scaled up to large extent. So that is one. And coming from the perspective of another colleague talked about how the more participation can come from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. If you talk about UNFPA, out of, I would say, in the last 3 years, if we talk about 10 solutions, 8 are coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. It's more about finding the solution. It's not about only technology, it's just finding the right chord. What is a solution that will definitely address that? And that happens, that normally happen once for whom we are designing solution and what we need to design. If that is figured out well, it's easy to move forward to the next needle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will just wrap this up again, and I'm just going to read your last key takeaway, which actually does a very good job. I hear measuring. I hear ambitions. We have to have the big ambitions, because if you have small ambition, it's not going to really solve anything, right? I mean, collaborations. We don't know what we don't know. Platforms, funding, collaboration, ecosystem map. We have to know all these things. And it's about connecting people, platforms, clusters, scale, and transition to scale. Now, I will wrap all this up. I will just say it's about ecosystem failure. Let's stop blaming each other. Let's all roll our sleeves. Let's all take resources from each other, and we can make a bigger pie if we pull our ingredients together instead of making all the small pie with limited flavor, right? We can be happier this way. With that, I want to thank all my panelists and also you, the audience, for being very patient. Again, please give our panelists a very warm round. And with that, I turn over the floor to you for an announcement, since I disrupted their schedule.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you all for your part. We have a small token of all the speakers today, and to hand over that, I would like to request Ms. Atsuko Okuda to please join us on stage. And if we can have the gifts, then I would like her to please hand over one to Jeanette White from GSMA. Thank you for your participation. And the next one to Mr. Sanjeev Sharma from I was going to say ITU, but it's Department of Telecommunications, of course. The next one to Dr. Tav Pritesh Sethi. And the next one to Dr. Lavneesh Chanana from SAP. The last one to Mr. Sahil Kapoor from UNFPA, last but not the least. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Can I ask all of you to please come together for a group picture? Thank you so much, everyone.
Can you take one more picture with this background?
We can change the background. Can we have the next background?
No, this is the one I want.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would request the technical team to please switch to the next slide, which has the contact details of our office. So if anyone in the audience would like to contact us, please scan the QR code on the screen. The next session will take place in the same hall in 10 minutes. We'll have a small coffee break. Coffee is being served in the lunch area, the common lunch area. And the next session is on the topic of fostering small and medium businesses in the new digital era to achieve the SDGs. We start in exactly 10 minutes. Thank you everyone for your participation. We'll now start the second panel. The panel discussion is titled Fostering Small and Medium Businesses in the New Digital Era to Achieve the SDGs. And I would like to hand the floor to the moderator for the session, Ms. Atsuko Okuda. Atsuko-san, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you, Akanksha, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back to the session 2. As you heard from my colleague, Mo, we have a lot of things to do in terms of our open innovation ecosystem. And there were challenges and opportunities. But in this session, we want to take it a little bit more closer to the ground and to talk about entrepreneurship and SMEs. Because at the end of the day, innovation ecosystem is good, but someone has to implement it. And SMEs are one of the key instruments to make it happen. But I want to start and open this session with my observations. Because I think we heard that there are many good ideas and technologies coming out from academia. So my question is, where are they now? Why are they not the sources of income and successful businesses, right? So that's number one. And number two, from an the SDG point of view, you know, there are 17 SDGs, and there are many things to be done, and there is a technology in front of us. So my question is, so where are the SMEs who can make it happen, who can respond, who can be adaptable? So I think SDGs need you, and the SMEs can do a lot for the achievement of all the 17 SDG goals. And I believe that it sounds very nomadic, but 17 goals to achieve at the same time is a huge challenge for the humanity, and we have to do it, and technology has the key, is the key to really solve the challenge and to accelerate the achievement. And we are very lucky today to have a distinguished speakers to address the challenges and opportunities and perhaps give us some insights and advice from where you are and what you do. Before I go even further, can I give the opportunity to each panelist to introduce yourself and about your organization? And then after that, I will go for the first round of questions. Please.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Surbi. I am with Startup India in West India, part of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Our reporting department is Department of Promotion for Industry and Internal Trade, with a mandate to support, handhold, and accelerate startups. I have been part of the team since past 3 years now, and I'm looking forward to an interactive session with all of you. Thanks for joining.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Magnus Huvering. I have the role as CTO Asia Pacific for Ericsson. Ericsson, truly global company, having business in over 180 countries and territories. I'm proud to be here in India. We started to serve India in 1903, and we started production, manufacturing in India in 1994. Now, we're very happy to serve our big customers here in the 5G rollout and play a role in shaping and changing society as it leverages on 5G.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kachina Chawla. I work with USAID India in the health office and lead the portfolio on health system strengthening. Before I continue to introduce myself, I'd just like to know the audience. How many of you are actually in an SME? Are any of you actually working in small to medium enterprises? One. Why is the rest here? What is it that they are interested in hearing and learning about? I think we need to know who our audience is before we start talking.
Can I be very candid?
Yes.
This is the only panel where I saw some women's stats on the panel, and that's the reason I walked in.
We have women and their powerhouses.
Yes.
Sir, in the back, you can just speak up. Yeah, we can hear you.
I think the room is quite acoustic.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Rahul Shah from the GSMA, and I work on the Mobile Development Foundation. And we work a lot with smaller companies, startups, to achieve SDGs, actually. So
Fantastic. So we have businesses, aggregators, people interested in women businesses. Wonderful. So just to tell you briefly about how we operate at USAID, you know, we obviously are based out of Washington, D.C., and are the development wing of the U.S. government. In India, in healthcare, we invest about $50 million each year, and small to medium enterprises are a key partner for us. We're really focused around how can India and the U.S. government come together to really propel and solve development problems for the rest of the world as well, not just within India. So I look forward to discussing that further.
Thanks so much. I'm Gaurav Sharma, again working in another development corporation, this German Development Corporation, an Indo-German partnership, and we work across social impact sectors. Personally, I am in the field of artificial intelligence for social impact. And coming to this question of SMEs, actually it drills down to an individual. It goes to the grassroots, and as a technology, as a digitized digital world interface takes shape, there are proof that SDGs in all its forms shall get impacted through digitization in one way or the other. And I would like to have my sessions in and around natural resource management and agroecology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I can already see that the audience are active and they will ask questions to you. But let us first go to the first round of questions so that you can provide more information on what you do and to share with us your insights. So can I start with Mr. Magnus? Small and medium sized businesses often face challenges in adopting advanced technologies. How can larger technology companies like Ericsson support these businesses in their digital transformation journey? So how can they access to more advanced technologies and make it a successful business?
Yeah, thank you. So there are many angles to this question. We work a lot with startup companies. We have special programs, we have units that work with them for many reasons. One is, of course, to stimulate the market, have creative minds and help them into the market. And also because there are many good ideas there. Good ideas that perhaps needs help to grow a bit and help to get in contact with other parties that can leverage from these. Now, we have a startup program, in fact, that you can see on our webpage, where we interact with promising companies all over the world. Then in terms of the technology that we're part of providing, I mentioned 5G already. Often we refer to it as an innovation innovation platform for society. We believe that earlier generations were predominantly for individuals, for consumers. Now we're going to embrace the rest of society, connecting public sectors, connecting things, connecting enterprises, in addition to, of course, enhancing the life of individuals. And this brings up many new opportunities to be innovated. How do you do it then? Many ways to that. But there's an important thing going on in the market, and Janet from GSMA mentioned it earlier. She talked about the open gateway. In effect, what it is that mobile operators are sitting on a lot of information in the network, And in the past, it's not been possible to, in a straightforward way, provide that to app developers. Now, an Ericsson initiative started this, what's now Open Gateway, where this exposure from the network can be made available. We have acquired a company called Vonage, an American-based company that is an aggregator and has a developer environment where apps can be created. And then through this aggregator, they can get access to the information in the network. This kind of aggregator, Vonage is not the only one, but that's the one I know best. People, small, medium enterprises who do apps can quickly reach a market. And the good thing is that that market is not only contained to one country. These aggregators are worldwide. So all of a sudden, your innovation is accessible from anywhere in the world. So it's a fantastic way to quickly scale what you have and make it available on a very wide range, and then be part of a monetization chain. So that's one example. There are many such things where the connectivity platform through 5G brings a base for driving innovation. And I think, last comment, sorry, what we see in the inauguration speech today by PM Modi officially launching the 100 trial sites here in India with universities, excellent base to try out and innovate on mobile systems. That is the spirit to drive future innovation and test out how well your ideas can fly.
Thank you. And I think that's an excellent point to connect to the academia and all the discussions that we just had in the previous session. So thank you for sharing your insights. Now I would like to move on to Ms. Surabi. Startup India has been pivotal in supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India. How is the program fostering the growth of startups focused on achieving the SDGs? And what are some success stories? So the floor is yours.
Thank you for that question. So, for context, the Startup India initiative was launched in 2016 by the Government of India with a mission and vision to support startups. And when we started the organization, and we still are a sector agnostic organization. With that, there are various key incentives and initiatives that we are coming up very frequently to support startups, be it seed fund scheme, be it tax exemptions for the startups, be it IPR support, or be it connections with the industry, academia, and other partnerships. These are some of the generic things for the sector agnostic, including SDG related sectors that we are working on. However, more SDG specific initiatives that we have started in last 3 years would be one, a mentorship platform. It is in order to bridge the gap for the startups and other SMEs to be connected to the right mentors in their allied sectors. So the connectivity platform is available on our hub, the Startup India portal, wherein these startups can directly reach out to these sector experts for a dedicated hand-holding support. Besides this, we often see that an issue that the startups have been facing with respect to impact investment is because these investors are not able to justify the quantitative impact driven out of these startups that are working into SDGs. And because of this problem often faced by the startups as well as investors, there is a dedicated Investor Connect platform to support such ideas wherein the startups are working towards the SDGs. Lastly is the partnership building exercise that we have been concentrating on, which includes connection with ministries. Ours is a Ministry of Commerce. However, we try and give avenues to the startups working in SDGs by partnering with various other ministries such as Ministry of Health, Ministry of Telecommunication, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Water and Sanitation, with an idea for these ministries to do a pilot with these startups, having an innovative discussion platforms. This is the third thing that we have been focusing on. Besides ministry, our idea is also to get connected with corporates such as WhatsApp, Airtel, Jio, and launching various innovation launchpad for these startups. So these are some of the sector-specific dedicated programs that the government has come up with in order to promote startups working in SDGs. Some of the great success stories that we have encountered from our 100,000 DPIIT recognized startups are, one, there's this startup that is working specifically into telemedicine, which provides an on-call telemedicine services and has been doing so well. It's not a new idea, but the innovation is the speed of answering, and it's and onboarding professional experts which are recognized by Ministry of Health itself. The second thing that we've been seeing, and this startup has recently raised its Series G as well, is the allo cells, wherein the cells, these are not made up of lithium battery, which is hazardous for the environment, but these cells are made of aloe vera gel. So these are some of the success stories that I would say have come out from our cohort. And I would like to end by saying that from the 100,000 recognized startups that we have in our portfolio as on today, approximately 10,000 of them are specifically working towards meeting the SDG goals. For ma'am there, approximately 52% of these startups have at least one woman director as well. And 48% startups are approximately coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So I'm very fortunate to share some of the stats and success stories. Looking forward to the questions from the audience next.
Thank you. It sounds very exciting, and I want to, hear more about those channels, elements, and why they are successful, and what are the lessons learned that we can share with the participants. But we will come back to you. And you also mentioned the sectoral aspects of SME and innovation. And now we would like to move on to health and agriculture. And now I would like to invite Ms. Kachina from USAID. Health systems are naturally an integral part of achieving the SDGs, especially SDG 3, health and well-being. How can digital innovation and SME businesses play a role in strengthening healthcare systems and achieving this goal? And I believe that this is, and perhaps it of course applies to the agriculture as well to a certain degree, there are some social sectors which may or may not be directly linked to financial and economic gains such as health. But we need these innovations to be translated and delivered in a sustainable and financially successful manner. So I believe that there are many question marks and perhaps good practices and pathways that you may have seen in your programs. And I think there is a lot that we can learn. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. We're at a juncture right now where health has the capability of transforming people's lives. I don't know if you're aware of this statistic, but every year 50 million people are pushed into poverty in this country alone, but based on healthcare expenditure. It's an awful statistic. And when we start to think about how much this is happening globally, we realize that we need to change something, and something very fundamentally needs to change. What has happened often is that, you know, market forces have come together to respond to the needs of the hour. And I think everyone here knows, based on their experience with COVID, what that means, right? When you couldn't find help where you needed it and you went out and found it in any other way. But in that came a great opportunity also, right? Because suddenly we had so much more access. Suddenly digital became the way you would even talk to your doctor, your family member, forget your doctor or a nurse or a pharmacist, right? You know, SMEs came in to play a very, with every data point you work with, there is a person behind it. So the organizations that pull to the surface are the ones that are thinking about really the responsible use pieces as well. They're thinking about things like privacy. They're thinking about things like consent. They're thinking about things like security, even though it's expensive to think about these things. And I think that's the difference when you have to start to think about how you're building a health system, is you need to start to include those things. The other piece that I just want to put in here is that in preparation to come to this, I read a statistic that said 5% of SMEs in India actually provide health insurance to their employees. Folks, health starts at home, right? Do we provide it to our own staff, to our own people who work with us? And I recognize all these things we're suggesting makes it more expensive. But until we start to address things like that, start to create systems that allow us to address issues around you know, how we are covering our own employees, we're really not going to move further. And you know, I realize that we're all talking about India moving from being the 5th largest economy to the 3rd largest economy, and SMEs play a huge role in that, right? However, there's the flip side. SMEs play a huge role in the development of India also. And as we've heard repeatedly, and as you pointed out, there's a lot of scope for improvement there. One of a particular program that we have that I think would be of interest to especially the aggregator in the room, and as the SME as well, we have something called a blended finance facility, which mixes loans and grants. It's called Samrid, and it mixes loans and grants to small to medium enterprises along the value chain of health, and there's a lot of digital in there, in order to help them move into markets that they traditionally may not have done so. And we're seeing, currently we're invested in 60 plus innovations. We've leveraged over $300 million from this. So we're really hoping that opportunities like this, the audience like this, we can bring them into the folds of entities like Samrid.
Thank you. And I always believe in the problem-solving capabilities of SMEs. And if I were one, and listening to you and get to know that 95% of SMEs don't provide healthcare services, wouldn't that be an opportunity for businesses, right? Maybe someone or one of you can think about digitally empowered healthcare programs for SMEs, for example, and you have a blended financing offering. Isn't that a great opportunity? So I really believe in the SMEs' flexibility and, you know, the responsiveness to these challenges, especially related to SDGs. And I'm sure that you have many reactions and responses, and I look forward to hearing from you. But before that, I want to hear more about agriculture, because many people depend on this sector, and how to make it efficient through digital as well as profitable can make a huge difference for a lot of people. Now, let's move on to Dr. Gaurav. Agriculture, of course, is a critical sector for achieving several SDGs, including Goal 2, Zero Hunger, and Goal 13 on climate action. What do you think? How can digital technologies and innovation empower medium-sized enterprises in agriculture to make a positive impact on these goals. And again, these challenges can be turned into business opportunities, and I can see that in the sector of agriculture, there are many such opportunities.
Thanks a lot. I think the context setting for agriculture is important. When you look at India with more than, I think, if I'm not wrong, around 92, 93% smallholder farmers. So like, less than 1 to 2 hectares of land. So the whole idea in India, and also number of families, so around 650 million families directly or indirectly connected to agriculture, right? So the context setting of agriculture itself is huge. In what, and again, the agriculture value supply chain all the way from buying seeds and, selling into the market is huge. So innovation from a digital standpoint comes at every level. If you can even provide those smallholder farmers access, information, advisory at every scale, he will like to continue and improve upon his products. Also, the importance is to look at the digital literacy in general terms, but digital literacy in particular of those farmers, and how that can absolutely sort of multiply exponentially the capacity engagement of that farmer with the real world, right, in terms of understanding. Why I'm trying to talk through all this is because I work in the AI, sort of artificial intelligence sector. The possibility is India is also multilingual, in terms of dialects, in terms of everything. So if you are looking at an illiterate farmer who knows how to speak and hear, can you actually enable it on his feature phone to get advisory and information on what he asks in the dialect that he's asking at his own home, right? So the aspect of SMEs from innovation digitization is that AI-enabled capacity building has actually taken shape in the mindset of innovators. And these are where the SMEs, or I mean, in India also the size and the definition of SMEs could be, small, medium enterprise could be 100 plus people. Huh? If you go to Germany, it might be 10 people. So I'm just giving you a context setting also how SME should be looked at. But the innovation aspect is being looked at where even a 1 rupee engagement in terms of if I can provide a service and get 1 rupee out of it, that's where actually the potential of wealth creation in India is in and across agriculture. And this is easier said than done. People have been looking at websites, portals, I would say monitoring systems, data analytics, but I think the whole convergence of the digital ecosystem where I don't need to have 10 types of chatbots, I don't need to have 10 to 15 types of information platforms to look at, log in, and then get access to information, is that convergence landscape in agriculture which will have a huge impact. And because I'm a proponent and I am an optimist, I think generative AI or what you chat GPT, if it gets percolated into a scenario where Bhojpuri's dialects in Bihar spoken in Bhagalpur can be understood by that feature phone, not even a smartphone, it will enable that farmer to first continue his farming, to invest in his farming, and to actually get better results. So I think the encapsulation around SMEs is where the potential lies, and these people, I mean, they are the sector where people are taking opportunities. Rest at that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think you highlighted a very important point of SME being people-centered. Because when we think about the end users who speaks the languages that you mentioned, then we have to think about different types of services, and then that can be business opportunities, right? So I think that people-centered approach can open a lot of doors and opportunities for us. And I know that perhaps across all the comments that you shared, there are great opportunities and there are great initiatives that are available for a lot of SMEs. One of the perhaps important enablers of SMEs could be how to lower the entry point and the obstacles, and they're in many shapes. For example, access to information or access to standards, access to government services. If they are readily available, they don't have to spend hours and hours to look for such information or opportunity. And I know that there are some colleagues from TSTSI who's promoting such standards and access to information to a lot of technology services. And I'm just wondering if you would like to take the floor to share with us how you are supporting the SMEs and businesses by providing such information.
Thank you, Atsuko-san, for that question. So at TSTSI, we are basically a standards development organization working in the telecom space. And telecom today is no longer just a technology to connect people. It's more about enabling, powering use cases at the application layer. So the use cases that we're talking about in this session, the ones that we have just heard, health, and agriculture. These are typical use cases, typical verticals where telecom is becoming almost like a core infrastructure. Now, having stated that, at TSTSI, we are facilitating discussions amongst the use case, the actual user community, the solution providers, service providers, and the technologies to all come together, discuss problems, come out with, share their solutions. Any innovations that have happened can be shared, and these can then, these can either result in some technical report in terms of some findings which can then be shared with the larger community, or they can also result in some standard which comes out, which can again benefit society in general. So we would really encourage the various folks, the SMEs who are working in various verticals or in the technology segment to do consider engaging with us. We'll be very happy to help you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very important service and a function. So can I open the floor? I know that some participants wanted to speak in the previous session, and I'm not sure if these questions will be applicable here, but there are many very important and interesting examples and insights that were shared by the panelists. And now you have the opportunity to share your thoughts on that and ask questions.
So thank you, moderator. I'm Gitika Goswami. I work for EFAT. My question is, we have these technologies available, especially for the agriculture sector. There are 90 to 95% people who are smallholder farmers. But the point is now, not only the technology availability is not the solution, to literate, digital literacy is one of the important factor, because the population who are right now the farmer is at an age who are really not so much comfortable to use those technologies. Maybe the next generation they are comfortable of, but those generation who has the traditional knowledge on the agriculture sector, but how to educate them, how to digitally literate them to use this technology, that is, I think, one of the important point that we need to now focus on. So I would really, I'm interested to know that what we can do to really, literate them to use these different technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very important question, that the technology moves very fast, but maybe users may not be catching up with necessary digital skills, right? To be able to take advantage of it. Now,
I'll just take
yes.
a first hint at it. So when you are looking at the farmer community as such, right? I mean, the first is a psychological mindset. Like, so we all come from farmer community, at least in India, right? I mean, just push back 2 generations. So my father came into a service industry and now I'm in an IT industry. Let's fast track it. My father was in a public sector, now I'm in a private sector. That's how the fast tracking happened. The farmer wants to give and does not make his children a farmer. Okay, I mean the education part is actually linked to what? That I want to give him a job which is not farming, except farming it's fine. I think the digital literacy aspect is a different ball game altogether. Second thing is there were traditional farming practices which had been lost, or there has been a knowledge gap in terms of transition into farming itself from 1 or 2 generations into what farmers do now because of use of pesticides or just some 4 or 5 practices. There was knowledge in the traditional farming practices which actually made the soil, atmosphere, everything better. So there are some aspects of also looking at how these traditional practices can be brought back. But the whole idea in this conversation is about sustainability. Till the time farming is actually looked as a practice where the ROI investment in terms of your whole effort, the whole day's effort, is making that farmer family think through that he can make some money out of it. That's why people say, okay, why don't you do mushroom farming? Oh, the price of mushroom is investment 10 rupees, profit 100 rupees, right? I think these mixing of traditional, organic, other type of farming practices is something which is at the core of thinking of farming. And digital literacy sits on top of it. Digital literacy is an enabler to make him earn more ROI on his investment. And farmer, I'll tell you, is one of the most risk taker. If he actually sees that he's getting 10 to 15%, return of investment, he's able to invest 25% of his resources into that to get that investment back. So I think and the whole life cycle of farming is to be also looked at. So I'm just trying to sensitize the audience here that agriculture is a very complex matter in terms of not only looking at the digital literacy layer, which will happen, but that has to be looked at why he should know the digital literacy if he can really make farming something as at par as engineering, at par at becoming a doctor. And those sentiments have to come through, that the generation should actually go back to farming and not actually trying to take service industry. I mean, this is a sentimental sort of take on what you're trying to say.
Thank you. Please.
So I just wanted to say, we, during COVID, saw that a lot of businesses needed to move online. And we launched a program with Seva Bharat. I don't know if you know them. The lady who knows about women, and it's an amazing organization. It's the largest network of a trade union for women across this country, actually across the world, I think now. And what we did was basically work with women entrepreneurs, micro entrepreneurs, so not maybe at the 100 people stage, but and help them with digital literacy, because that was key there. And it wasn't a question of waiting till the next generation. We had to do it now. We had to do it in the next literally 1 month of how to help these women survive and be able to actually thrive with their businesses during lockdown. And I have to say it was an incredibly humbling experience. And this is where I think we need to also realize is that digital literacy is not a switch that turns on or off, right? It's not like, oh yeah, I showed the woman the phone and she knows how to use it now. It's a constant process. And it's a process that takes a full community and I call every family's chief technical officer is their child sitting there. And we had to bring those guys in to help with that digital literacy process. And it was really successful to be able to do that. So you're spot on about the importance of looking at digital literacy and understanding it, but also thinking about it as something that has enablers around the person or around the individual makes it an easier process for them. The other thing I will say with technology, most of our most successful technology has something what we call bridge units, right? It's the brick and mortar to shadi.com, yeah? It's that there's always those people that need their hand to be held, to see a face, to understand what's that kind of direct passageway they need. And in healthcare, this becomes really important, right? Because if you call up and you just see a machine and you get flustered by that, we're in trouble. the health system is in trouble. So those bridge populations become very important for us. Hak Darshak was an example that I don't know if you know this company, worth looking up if you don't. It's called Hak Darshak, and they created Hak Darshakis, who would help women in the community to then buy and sell the products that they need and turn online. So absolutely spot on.
So if I take the liberty to phrase your question as I perceive it, how do you groom a market, right? And how do you educate your customers to understand it? Well, you have to make it appealing somehow. And that is a very hard process. Many enterprises die in that process. It takes too long time before the market really takes off. I've had the pleasure in my career to go through some large technology changes and bringing it to market. And it's very frustrating, I can tell you. In 2005, I remember distinctly, I went to customers of Ericsson, so operators talking to senior people with business acumen, people really technology savvy. And I showed a slide with a device, a phone, with no buttons on it. It was a smartphone, right? And when I showed that in 2005, nobody had a smartphone. Feedback I got was, no, you need buttons. The screen will be greasy. Right? These are smart people, but they were not used to it. And nor was I should say. Right? It was just a slide, to be fair. But we needed some years to get it in our hands. And when smartphones came on the market, they had 3 or 1 button. Apple had 1 button, the others had 3 buttons, right? And after some time, the buttons go away, and no smartphone has it today, only a screen, because the customers have been educated and groomed into it. So, but this takes time. It takes a lot of time. If you're an enterprise, think carefully of how you bootstrap your market and make your proposition palatable to the level where your customer can reach. And every time, excel it. If you're on a national level, it's a lot about education. Again, we heard in the inaugural speech today by PM how he drives universities to think and be thought leaders and think about the future. That's grooming for the future. Of course, it takes time, but it will give the fair right effect over time as well.
I'll just quickly add as an example to the other side of the absorption powers of the farmers these days. Like Gaurav said, that they have a risk appetite. We were very happy to see that the farmers and the agriculturalists are also open to change. For example, one of the startups, robotic startups basically, working into then end-to-end solution for the farmers, from plowing to seeding to watering to harvesting. They've come up with this product. The major challenge that they were facing was, even after deployment and training, the farmers were not able to capture that, how to use the product. Now, within less than a year and with right training modules, the startups could overcome that change with the farmers, and the farmers were ready to absorb and take that technological change into absorption, only to see a faster return, lesser time consumption. So what I'm trying to say is that the early, the better, but we have seen a positive change in the outlook even at this stage and age with respect to the farmers. Thank you so much for that question.
Thank you. I think you got a very good, diverse and in-depth answers from the speakers. Now, can I open the floor again in case you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
So I'm Bindu again, and just as a follow-on to the question my fellow participant asked about digital literacy. So in India, we have this unique, we are a diverse country. We have several languages, and we have this concern about accessibility, connectivity problems. So from a digital literacy point of view, and I am now I also find it very difficult to work on, absorb new technologies. Although the younger generation, they're born into technology, but I face the same problem. So elderly people and maybe people who are not really literate may face that challenge. So at TSTSI, what we are doing is, from a financial inclusion point of view, one of the key challenges that we found was the inability of the reticence, the hesitancy people have in accessing and using digital tools, because they are a little, they are not very comfortable with the smartphone. Or the smartphone is not, they cannot use it in their language. It is either in English or in Hindi or some, conventional languages. So at TSTSI, we are doing a study on coming out with a language repository, which will help maybe at the end of the day translate the responses from the device to the person in their own native language. So it is two things. Being able to speak, interact with the user in their language, maybe in a written manner or through voice. So that technology is now available. We just have to harness it and maybe, should I say, standardize it. We are working on it from the financial vertical point of view, but I'm sure it can be translated into other verticals also. We also have come out with a rural broadband architecture document where we have identified some such use cases, some applications, and we hope to develop it further. Maybe, and digital literacy is one of the key areas there. So that was just a comment. Thank you.
That's again an excellent question, because language is always a question, and how to enable it could be a challenge, but it could be a business opportunity. Right? And I think you also touched upon the specific use and needs of different societal groups, such as older population. Just to share with you, where I am coming from, in Japan, there is a very severe the labor force shortage. And that was actually one of the reasons why they wanted to use robots, because, human beings are in short supply, and they had to come up with a response. So I think these challenges could be turned into an opportunity using different technologies and ideas. So
I just wanted to comment, if I can, just for, I think, ma'am, your question on languages is pertinent, but there is a low resource language component, and we are trying to sort of also empower this data collection at the grassroots. Right? So again, just a ballpark thing, like I think you would have all seen the Time Cover magazine. If you have not, just go to the Karya.com. So Karya Inc. is a corporation which is actually providing some sort of monetary benefits for voice donation, right? So Bhasha Dan. So they actually have, but this is a socio-technical system. I'm talking about low resource languages like Mundari, Magahi, Chhattisgarhi, which is spoken by around 5 to 10 million people, even more, I think. But as you rightly said, the technological tool for that, translations are not available. So it is not only a question of, yes, technology is there, and I'm a proponent of AI. Few shot learning, you can fast track it. But I just found one linguist and one PhD in Chhattisgarhi to actually work on it, right? I mean, that is the complexity of why would you take up something on that language side. So on the language front, the data is still the king, by the way. Till the time you don't have a minimum threshold volume and hours, you will not be able to create applications on financial inclusion, nutrition, and all on top of it. Which is understood, and people say, okay, why don't you use AI? But it is not as easily done in a sense. So I do accept your challenge, but there are also initiatives which are being looked at to actually empower the language data sets itself, and again, in open space, so that people can really, the startups, the SMEs can use it to create applications.
Thank you. I think I want to actually touch upon what you mentioned, and earlier in the session, we talked a lot about the collaboration with academia. So my question is it something that perhaps we should work on with universities, where they study the technology as well as languages, and perhaps that should be connected to the entrepreneurship facilities so that perhaps we can think about as a package and integrated manner the services. And of course, we have the young entrepreneurs and the university researchers and representatives from the university, and we want to hear from you what you think about these challenges that could be addressed from different stakeholder perspectives. But we will wait on that because I would like to give the floor to other speakers to share with us what you think about these challenges plus opportunities.
I am all in favor of starting it early and at a young age. With that, our mandate is also to foster academia collaborations. We have seen some of the brightest students and student entrepreneurs coming up with the great innovative solutions through hackathons, the government-run hackathons that usually take place time and again. The Atal Tinkering Labs that have been nurtured and fostered under Niti Aayog is one case study of such examples where in collaboration with academia do come to a success with various hand-holding support. The incubation centers that the universities and colleges have come up with are helping and supporting student entrepreneurs achieve, bootstrap, learn through experience, through various R&Ds and other experiments in real time. So we have been working very closely with both state universities as well as central universities to foster innovation together. And we are also looking forward to hosting more such challenges. We have our sector-specific hackathons and innovation grand challenges with academia. We have one running as we speak with Geetham University. So we are all game for it.
Okay, thank you. And I think these are very good, examples of how we can facilitate this collaboration to move forward. Now, I know that there is another question from the floor.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insight. And as a university, we really like to tie up with you or collaborate with you for taking this idea of organizing ideathons forward. So about opportunities in our university, we are being taught that problems are opportunities. So we look at problems in that way. And another aspect I want to touch upon is that we were talking about the financial inclusion and digital penetration in rural areas and farming communities. So I come from very farming background and very small village. And I think there is a very huge penetration of digital infrastructure in India right now, more than cities I am seeing right now. And even the financial inclusion is also there. The only thing I can sense right now is the companies are not reaching out towards the farmers, because farmers are using technologies. They are spending more time on mobile phones. They are using laptops right now, but no one is reaching out to them that they can provide some technical solutions. For example, a farmer in my village has to travel, say, 10 kilometers at a night, say at midnight of 12 o'clock, to just turn on a electric pump. And again, he has to come back because of power supply issue. But yes, the solution can be provided. There are opportunities are there, but no companies or no startup or entrepreneurs are reaching out to them. So I don't think there are problem from customers' end. Farmers are very open to the technology. They are learning technology. Mobile penetration is there. Technology is already there. And they are ready to accept the technology. We are failing to reach out to them. That's what I think.
Thank you. And it's a very interesting point, which means that the markets are there for the services. And maybe it's an opportunity for SMEs to provide services. Now, I would like to perhaps move on to the last round of questions because that is a very important segue. If you recall, in the previous session, my colleague talked about the digital innovation ecosystem failure or deficiency. And to me, it sounds that maybe it's part of it, that the service providers or SMEs are not, or they don't know the opportunities exist in your village or in other villages, right? And perhaps a more or similar gaps could be identified. So if there are platforms or connectivity among different stakeholders, there could be a supply and demand matched happily, and the farmers will get more services, right? So my last round of questions to each of you is that, considering what was discussed in the previous session on the digital ecosystem failure or deficiency, do you see them in your line of work on what you do? And if you find any failure or gaps in the ecosystem, how do you propose that we solve? And I think the gentleman's example is perhaps one of the good examples. It could be financing, right? The SMEs exist, but they don't know how to get funding, right? Or SMEs exist, but they don't know how to access the standards, right? Or the facilities to build digital literacy, right? So how can we collectively address or systematically address the challenges that were discussed from an SME point of view? Is there anyone who wishes to take? Yes, please.
Okay, on ecosystem. So for the part of industry I represent, that means then we need to get devices, items that are connected to mobile networks at price points that are palatable for the ones who buy them, be it consumers, be it enterprises. And again, to get there is not one single answer. It's a very complex problem, how to groom a market. But a key thing in all of this is scale, reach scale quickly. How to do it is not easy, and there can be many ways. I talked before using platforms to do software applications, reaching national scale, reaching international scale. I think India has a great advantage in being a huge domestic market, and that you should use for your advantage. You can do something in Delhi and it legally, regulatory-wise, flies in Chennai. If you're in Europe, that's not necessarily true, right? You may be bounded by legal constraints in one single country, countries that are smaller than a circle in India. So there you have absolutely an advantage, a potential to reach much larger scale than in many other countries. Still getting there is not easy. You will need partners, you will need help to do it, but reach scale. Why is it important? When you reach scale, you can push down cost. Again, take smartphones, extremely complicated machine. Last year, about 1.4 billion devices were sold in the world. We can do that in the industry because we can push down the cost so that's affordable to sell in such a volume. So reach scale one way or the other.
So a couple of things based on our experience with Samrit, which I think might be quite interesting to you. One is access to finance isn't as simple as a loan. And let me step back a second and tell you where this all started from. I was looking at the list of businesses trying to understand how many of them were owned by women, and found out that it was very few. And I started to research why, right? Why is it so few? And what we realized is that when you look at access to finance, it isn't as clear as you can just go to a bank and get a loan, right? To start a business if you want to. So we started things like revolving grants and revolving loans, which actually technically we weren't supposed to do earlier. You know, starting to transition them, my colleague was just telling me about transitioning them to giving them sort of credit lines at a later stage, and formal credit lines, right? Similarly, what we also realized, and I was very surprised by this, was that people wanted the advisory business services. It wasn't just about give me the money and give me the grant. The grant is meant to move you into the places where, say, for example, you wouldn't have someone, okay? Solar panels, we see them everywhere, right? But we don't have good businesses yet to fix them, right? Why? It seems like such a basic aggregator type business you could have. We don't have it. It's not, I've yet to find someone who has shown me a business model around it, right? But it was because of the business advisory services. They wanted to understand how do you market your products when you're talking about scale at the level that Sir is speaking about, right? You need certain amounts of advice from people who've already done it before many, many, many times. And, you know, the other thing I will say is this perspective of actually we also have to educate decision makers, people with authority, people with, you know, to take that risk, to be willing to pull out. When we ended up investing in giving these sort of low interest returnable grants to, or sorry, no interest returnable grants to people, we saw a 98% return on them, which is the equivalent of any loan, right? But the banks weren't willing to give it to people. So we have to start to create an ecosystem that enables people to want to solve that problem, right? To want to build that business that can solve that problem. And I think that's what we're missing right now, or one of the, like he said, there are many variables, but that's one of the key variables to be building that we are trying to do now.
Yeah, I do believe, you know, maybe on a meta level, the sense of the words like collaboration, cooperation, you know, in a both public, private, academia, civil society. I think that inter-exchange in agriculture needs to take up a little bit of a meta level of understanding, rather than you know, getting at the micro level. I also do believe that. You know, in our experiences, the cultural settings, the societal settings, the community settings, the village settings, they are an own ecosystem. So they have been existing and they work very well. So I think understanding those local ecosystems and hyper-local ecosystems is also critical for addressing those challenges. And sometimes we actually go at a very, you know, we try to build solutions which are really not workable. And I think there is more requirement for adoption of digital, in a sense of that digital is a solution, but I think that there is also sometimes the market is perplexed with too many solutions coming out. So the farmer would not like to go into another second app, right? But the whole idea of conscience that digital is a solution and enabler is still not being set up in a way which the market can actually utilize and bank upon. So there are multiple, I think, cascading effects to how you look at the, you know, the gaps and challenges, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
In my practical experience, what I've measured and seen and analyzed through various surveys run by various startups, as well as our over 5 lakh database users, is the fact that there's a lack of matchmaking. So we have the startups that are there and coming up with innovative solutions. We have users and consumers who are looking for these solutions. We have private industry who are making and developing these solutions, and we are government who are coming up with initiatives to bridge that solutions. However, all of them are working in silos. There's no platform, there's no forum wherein all of them are speaking with each other, and that's the challenge that we are trying to find solutions for every day. And I feel that forums like such are bringing all the stakeholders together to talk about it, speak about it, and know more about it. So we are fighting this challenge every day, and we are looking for more ideas and solutions to bridge that gap every day. Technology penetration is definitely one direction that we are going ahead with. That's why through our hub, we try and bridge this gap and match make the stakeholders as much as we can. But we also do realize that there's a long, long way to go.
Thank you. And I think this conversation itself can go a long way because we know what may exist and what may not, and we can perhaps, plan our actions, collective actions, I hope, from here onwards. So I think we heard a lot of very important insight from the speakers. Now, I would like to give the chance to ask questions one more time if you have burning questions. Yes?
So hi, good evening everyone. My name is Akash Jindal and I'm the co-founder and director of Philoy Private Limited, one of the MSc company here. I just wanted to share an experience with all of you while we were talking about one of the challenge of educating the the farmers or any other sector for that matter. We have been providing open source solutions mostly in health. We have also worked with GIZ in Malawi for agriculture. So one of the major challenge I would like to, one of the experience I would say have been, we were implementing a project in one of the state in India back in 2011, where we distributed 5,000 mobile phones to the ANMs. The ANMs are the community health workers basically who works in the area of 5,000 population. And the project was that, these ANMs has these register and they had to do this manual reporting every month. And it takes a lot of time to, to reach this register from the ground level, from the sub-center to the higher level. So in this project, basically, we tried to create an app, a Java-based app. At that point of time, there was no smartphone in India. There were only these Java-enabled phones. So we installed this Java-enabled app in the mobile phone, and we went to the the sub-centers, in the village level, to train these ANMs. There were more than 5,000 ANMs we had to train. And of course, the major challenge was the fear of change. They were pretty much comfortable with what they were doing on a daily basis. Filling their these daily registers and then making these reports, MIS reports, and then sending to the PHC and then CHC and then to the district hospital. And as soon as we reached to these facilities, we saw that some of the ANMs are on the strike even. They were not even working because they were quite fear about the change. They are not ready to accept the the mobile apps and everything. Of course, government took the initiative at that point of time, and then they started doing the incentives, to these ANMs. That you take this incentive, and then you start filling these reports. But with my experience and after 6 months of the reporting, I would say the major change we saw, which motivated them actually, was not the incentive, but the result actually. Once they start seeing the results in form of nice reports, some graphs, and some real-time, things which used to take a lot of time for them, they started believing in the app. They started using it more effectively, yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that he has a very interesting experience, and your work really reached to the highest level, right? I thought that you wanted to share that with the rest of the participants.
I can talk about that as well. Thank you so much. So recently, fortunately, we got an opportunity to work with the government of Bhutan, of course, with the help of ITU and the government of Australia. So basically, the Prime Minister Office of Bhutan, I would say the Ministry of himself, wanted a dashboard for decision making, where, because all of these different ministries in Bhutan had their different systems, and even some of them did not even have any sort of system. And they wanted to build a system where the Mr. Prime Minister could, go to the dashboard, can see the real-time data on the SDGs, of course, and can take some decisions. So we had the opportunity to develop this dashboard for the government of Bhutan, and he himself launched the dashboard back in 2022 November, and now they are using it for decision making and all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to give him the opportunity because to me, it's a success story. And I'm not sure if we can call your company an SME, but his company built the Prime Minister's dashboard of Bhutan. So I hope that we can see many of them through your support and with all of you.
Thank you. So to just add on to it, we have got an MSME certificate. We are a medium-sized company, and we promote the open source technologies. And basically, we do not believe in building something new. When there are a lot of solutions available in the market, so we try to customize the open source solutions for the for the organizations in the sectors. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe that it was a very rich discussion, and I really learned and enjoyed the conversations that you had, as well as the questions from the audience. And I hope that we can continue to day 2 of this event, because tomorrow we are going into more practical discussions on what are the tools that we can take it forward, and we can follow your example of perhaps building the next Prime Minister's dashboard in some other countries, right? And perhaps there are, exciting language tools that your university will develop. But tomorrow we will go into the hands-on on how to do this. So I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow, 9:30 in the same room. But I would like to propose a round of applause for the excellent speakers. So back to you, Kansha.
Thank you, Atsuko-san. We just have a small token of appreciation for all our guests. So 1 second. If I can request you to hand it one by one. Yes. Dr. Kachina Chawla. Ms. Surbhi Gupta from Startup India. Mr. Magnus Everbring from Ericsson. And Mr. Gaurav Sharma from GIZ. I will now request everybody to get together for one group picture before we close it. Please don't fall. Thank you so much. This brings us to the end of today's proceedings, but as Atsuko-san already mentioned, tomorrow we'll gather in the same hall at 9:30 a.m. for a workshop where we'll be going through some of the practical tools that the entrepreneurs, but also different stakeholders can use in their innovation journey to see how they can use some of these practices, best practices that have been put together by our colleagues from Geneva to be used in practical applications day to day. And thank you so much for your participation today.